Hello, everyone. It's been a while. I'm back again. Whenever something big pops up, I cannot resist. And there's obviously MAHMAD has shown itself again in some recent material from Dr. Al Jalad, and so decided we'll come back to this. And we have Con again here, who you may
Hello,
remember
everyone.
from an earlier video. Welcome back, Con.
G'day, Mel. Good to see you. Good to be back. It's always fun to work with you, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be in some respects, I think it's going to be helpful because this will vindicate what you've been saying, and you've taken a lot of flack that really I think has a lot of it's been undeserved.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with a lot of this, it kind of proves the point. You just have to wait long enough and you'll
Yeah,
be vindicated. The evidence,
that's
the
right.
big thing that you hope for is that somewhere, at some time, an inscription will be found that will
Yeah,
prove the point that you've been trying to make. And the way both of us operate, and this is why it kind of works really well, is we both think in terms of hypothesis, and a hypothesis can be proved right or wrong, and we put that out there and
yes,
that's great. It we're
and
not big egos. We don't mind if we're proven wrong.
yes.
But as long as the evidence says it one way or the other. But I think sometimes what happens is people are going around with assumptions and believe that the assumptions equals evidence. And no, we kind of have to look at the evidence and actually and say, well, what does that indicate? What does it hint
Yeah,
towards?
and and
And
yeah,
try and
and
come
we
up
and
with a
we
hypothesis.
That's right. And if you don't mind, Mel, I'll just quickly mention what I'm doing. And
Yeah.
it's important when we're talking about hypotheses. Our hypotheses are specific for certain things. Like,
Yeah.
Mel was happy for me to mention I've got a YouTube channel called "Is Islam a Sinking Ship?" So I talk about the five torpedoes. Islam stands on the five pillars. Well, I've taken five torpedoes to sink holes in it. Eyewitness testimony, archaeological evidence, written evidence, textual criticism, and other evidence, and in a sense, trying to synthesize a lot of the stuff that all of the scholars have been doing, the Inara, plus other people, books I've read, including Al Jalad's work, to show that Islam is a sinking ship, and the follow on from that is going to be a book called Islam on Trial. So I take the approach of, okay, let's look at the evidence and let's be like what attorneys do. Because at the end of the day, that's how you do historical proof. There is no such thing as scientific proof for history. You say, these are the facts we have. This is hypothesis A. This is hypothesis B. So I just want to put out there that the hypothesis that I think we are both at least are standing on to begin with is that the standard Islamic narrative is not true. So that's our first, the first thing we're talking about. Is the sin true or is it not true? I mean, if we can show that the sin is not true, then the question of how did it happen, well, that's an entirely different question. And we don't have to go down that rabbit trail if we don't want to. So
Yeah.
today, we're going to hopefully just restrict to show that what the sin says is not true. And if we can show that, then that's end of part one, so to speak.
Yeah. Misperception that some people have is in order to prove that the sin is false, we need to prove what actually happened. But that's not the
No, we
case.
don't. No, we
Yeah.
don't. No, that's
Yeah.
part two. You know, we
Yeah.
we 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 don't have to prove that unless we say we know what happened. We
Yeah.
can we can say, well, we're going to engage in some hypothetical speculation of what could happen, and
Yeah.
we can do that entirely. But I want everyone to understand that's a separate process. All we're talking want to show today, because you know, Jai, DOC, others are saying that well, to me it sounds like, and I could be wrong, and I'm happy to be corrected, that they think the sin is true. Well, they've got to defend that. We're saying it's not true, and that's the whole purpose of the book and the five torpedoes, and that's all I have to show that the sin is not true. From there,
Yeah.
the burden of proof is on someone who wants to say that it is true, and then they've got to
Yeah.
show why they believe so.
Yeah. One of the things I would point out, and I've been very honest about this, is my speciality isn't linguistics, and there are many people out
Yeah,
there who are really good linguists who often comment under our videos. And I know Jai is a linguist or has some knowledge, but that's not the end of the story, because this whole field is much bigger than the
It-
knowledge of one linguist, because
well,
there are a lot of languages that existed in Arabia with lots of cross pollination going on,
yeah, and
really complicated. And so we
that's
shouldn't
right.
be willing to think that because we know a little bit about grammar, or even a lot about grammar in a particular language, that means we
Yeah.
cannot be challenged on anything, and that non-linguists should just shut up,
Well,
even though we're seeing contrary evidence to what they're saying.
that that
So,
that's right. And with all due respect to Jai and anyone else, I mean, linguist, all right, but in what language? Okay, if you're an expert in Arabic, okay, that's fine. Which Arabic? Classical Arabic? Okay, pre-Islamic Arabic? Okay, do you know anything about Safavidic? Do you know anything about Sabaic Arabic? I mean, just saying that you're an expert in modern day Arabic, that's one thing, fine, but that really isn't enough. And so I think we've got to be careful to define our terms. In my view, a true linguist is somebody like, for example, Professor Kerr or someone like that who can speak multiple languages and knows the grammar of multiple languages and how they interact. Like, how does Syriac and Arabic, how are they similar and how are they different? You know what I mean? That's a linguist.
yeah. And I suppose the other thing I would point out is, while we're having a little bit of a pushback against Joy today, it's nothing personal. Same as I don't
No,
think it
no,
was anything personal. He was
no.
stating from his point of view his evidence as he
he's
saw it,
he's
as much
making
as
an
he's saying.
argument. We're making an argument. He doesn't agree. We're just showing that where we think his reasoning may be a little bit faulty, and we're presenting new evidence that's come to light now that I think supports our position. And and
Yeah,
and I think before we go into, I just want to really articulate our position. Is that what we're saying is that the term MHMD, however you want to pronounce it, Mahmad, because as we're just speculating on the pronunciation, right? It we're not saying that it was always a name. We're not saying it was always an epithet or a description. We're saying depending on the context, it could have been either one, right? Now, obviously, before Islamic times, it couldn't have been a name for the Prophet Muhammad, right? And so, if we look, what we're saying is, if we look at all of the evidence together and we find that term MHMD associated with things that are completely un-Islamic, then it's reasonable to say that, well, in that context, it's not the name of an Islamic prophet. Okay,
yes, yeah,
and so when what I and this is just my own personal belief. People want to say that we're mythicists. Well, if it means that I don't believe that the Prophet Muhammad of Islam existed, then yes, in that sense, we're mythicists. But we're not saying that there never was a Muhammad, another Muhammad. We're not saying that there never was an Arab prophet, or there was an Arab warlord, or there was his name might have been Mahmad, his name might have been Ali, whatever it might have been. But
yeah,
when we're talking about the Prophet Muhammad of the Sin, they're painting a very detailed box. A man who was born in 570 in Mecca. So Mecca had to exist in 570. He got the Quran from 610 to 632 in Mecca, right? And he founded the religion of Islam, and his followers were called Muslims. His immediate followers were called Muslims, and his successors were called caliphs.
yeah. And
You
he
see?
was living according to the Sen in a
Yeah.
pagan culture,
Yes,
something
and
that
prior to
gave
that's
it.
right, and Mecca was a thriving trade center, and prior to him coming, they were all pagans and Jahiliyyah, right? So the people who are supporting the sin have to prove that, you
Yeah.
know. We don't
And
have to prove that. All we just have to do is poke holes in it and say, well, all right, the evidence doesn't support it.
the reason why this is important, folks, I had the horrible experience of reading through all the hadiths about 2017. Absolutely, very few people. Like, I've even spoke to a Muslim who said, oh, "I haven't even done that." But
Yeah,
what really brings home is that every single hadith, well, with some exceptions, is peppered with all of these details. So if these details, like the culture of the time, where it's located, etc., are wrong, then you really have to question the hadiths themselves. Like,
yeah,
how valuable are these stories if they're getting so much of the details wrong? So that's
yeah,
that's
and
where we're at. we're not actually, as Con mentioned earlier on, we're not asserting an alternative. We're well, we may have different ideas about that, but for today, we're just pointing out that this standard Islamic narrative is false.
And you mentioned the hadith. I just want to, and I don't want to take up any additional time, but I think this is a question that's worth asking, right? If Muhammad was the Arab prophet, and if he was the last prophet and the exemplar for all mankind, right? Why is it that his teachings were not written down? Why is it that they had to depend on oral tradition for 200 years, right? I mean, surely, surely when Umar conquered Jerusalem, if Umar existed, right? Let's say when he conquered Jerusalem, there were plenty of people that could write down. If I were Umar, I would have said, listen to Mr. Sergius or Sophronius or whoever. I said, I want someone who can read and write Greek. I don't care. That's a manuscript. Oh, that's a New Testament. I'm going to rub it off, okay, because I want that parchment to write down the teachings of my prophet, because this is so important to us. I mean, why didn't they do it? There was plenty of people that could read or write throughout that area. I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. I mean, I know that's what they say, but I just don't buy it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, Mel? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The other thing is, and this is maybe not as there's probably an argument against this, but if the whole point of this was that the scriptures were wrong originally, and we've come along with scripture to correct everything, wouldn't you think that they would think, okay, well, our Arabic script is faulty. Before we start writing anything down, let's specify how we can read this. Let's put in the diacritical marks.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
develop
100%,
a system.
100%. And yeah, and for
it kind of came in eventually. I don't know how long it
yeah,
took, but
100 years or so. Yeah, and
piecemeal and not
piecemeal. That's right. And
with any,
And for anyone who's interested, I still haven't seen anyone refute Stephen Shoemaker's work on memory science that shows that the way that the Islamic narrative talks is not consistent with our current psychological and research on memory, as well as the anthropological and social science research on oral tradition. He's gone through all of that in his book, and the sin just does not fit with it. So, I had a Muslim once tell me, about the Isnad, and I from here on out, I'll challenge them and say, show me where this guy's wrong. So for anyone out there who thinks that the concept of Isnad does work, you've got to refute all of Shoemaker's stuff with all of his footnotes, and I challenge anyone to do that. Anyway, we better get started.
Okay, so let's have a look at Joy's take on all of this, and we'll stop every so often just to respond to it. If you want to jump in on anything, just put your hand up and I'll pause it and we can review. But he's setting out his stall for why MHMD was only ever pronounced and only ever can be pronounced Muhammad, despite the contrary evidence.
Happens to mean the praised one. Every name has a meaning in Arabic like that. But in the case of what we're talking about, which is the Christian sources, primarily Greek, they're actually exactly what they write is Muhammad. So John of Damascus, he writes MAHMAD. Well, yeah, because he's writing in Greek and there's no H in Greek. So he can't write Muhammad. It becomes MAHMAD. And we know that's Muhammad because then Abu Qura uses Muhammad in Greek and then he uses the Arabic Muhammad, just the way it's written. Okay, so this is the name of Muhammad. And it just seems people get tripped up on the difference between translation and transliteration. All right.
So that's he's responding to one of J. Smith's arguments again that he didn't bring up initially, but he's going to respond to it now. So we're going to show him responding to it, and then we're going to show him developing the argument in greater detail, and that's when we're going to be going into the sources and commenting or challenging the sources.
Okay.
Argument in this video, and again, you guys can see 1.2 million views, right? And so we're going to see what type of information he's presenting here. Now, there's obviously a lot to comment on from what he just said, but we have a lot to go through so we can get into it in, greater detail as we go. But yeah, what do you think so far?
The Lord Jesus Christ is called altogether lovely. And he's trying to say that therefore Muhammad is the praised one as a link to the Lord Jesus. Is that the logic?
I'll show you exactly what he's doing in this video. We'll get into it.
Okay, let's see.
Requires 3 vowels. Do you see any vowels in any of those manuscripts? Do you see any damas or kasras or fatas? I don't see any. And this is why Raymond hasn't done his history. Are you listening to this, Abdul? Please listen. This is for you too. I know you don't know Arabic, but they agree with me. In the 7th century, there were no 5 dots. Today, there are 5 dots. These diacritical marks had to be invented because nobody could read that. You can't read it. But that's why they had to be created in the 8th and 9th century. So with that in mind, what does the word Muhammad look like today? That's what it looks like today, all right? You both.
So he's basically pointing out to people today, okay, this is the way you pronounce it today, but it's not necessarily the way it was in the past. I'll just stay on this a little bit to hear Joy's response to this.
Agreed with me that.
So he's talking to 2 people in the crowd that speak Arabic, and he's appealing to them. He's saying that they're, he's calling some guy Abdul, and he's saying, you don't know Arabic, but these guys know Arabic. So he's appealing to Arabic speakers, and yeah, you guys can see this is where we come in.
But since there were no vowels back then, this is what it looked like back then. Now read it. Ooh, did you hear? Mahmad. So suddenly it goes from Muhammad to Mahmad.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's literally the same exact.
It's still Muhammad.
It's literally the same exact word, the same exact name.
It's still Muhammad.
If you go to anything, any book, any newspaper, anyone, just someone writing their name Muhammad, they're not going to be writing their name with these vowels. They're going to be writing their name exactly like this. This is what the name looks like.
In the Arab world, this is how people write the name Muhammad. They don't always add in these marks. Why? Because everybody knows what it is. These extra marks is to help maybe non-Arab speakers or people who are starting to learn or people who don't know. If it's already known, you don't need the extra marks because people know. You can see it looks similar. So you look at it as someone who knows the language already and go, oh, this is Muhammad. Plus, also, if you say Mahmad, you are assuming that the first letter has a fatha, the second letter has a sukoon, like a pause. The third letter has a fatha, which is a vowel, and the third letter has a sukoon, a pause. You're assuming. You can also assume differently, which Jai will get into.
We'll get into that, yeah.
So if you don't know Muhammad, you don't always call it Mahmad. You can assume different marks and a different way of saying it if you don't know it.
Yeah.
But most people, in fact, or everyone, we don't use these marks anymore because everybody knows what Muhammad looks like.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Abdul, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be clapping. This is shutting you down. You just keep somber for a while, okay? So now it's become mim ha mim dal with no vowels, which means this is a word. It's not Muhammad, but it's Mahmad.
Again, it's not Muhammad. This is just conjecture on his part. You can read it. We're going to show how many different ways you can read this word.
Yeah, I get what they're saying. So, look, the problem. Okay, see, this is where this is a bit of a straw man in my view, and maybe it's because Jay may have been a bit exuberant in his characterization. So what if people today, when they see mim ha mim dal, know that that's Muhammad, right? So what if people today know that? All right, with today's Arabic teaching and today's Arabic grammar, that doesn't mean that somebody in the 7th century or the 6th century or the 5th century that saw those consonants would have pronounced it Muhammad, right? It doesn't mean that. That doesn't follow. Does that make sense, Mel?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, you go. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, if they stopped it there, they would really have like a circular argument. In a sense, they're talking about it's pronounced this way today, so therefore it was pronounced in the 7th century. But actually, they then go into the grammar side of things, and this is where their argument gets stronger. But it's still has a challenge that we can make against it.
Yeah, that's right. But I mean, let me say at the outset, what they have to prove is that in the 7th century and the 6th century and the 5th century, as we'll see, is that it was Muhammad. That's what they have to prove. All right. And it's that, I think, is going to be very difficult, because you can't prove something like that unless you have like a Rosetta Stone, which has got the one language and the other, and you know how it's pronounced, right? So anyway, keep going.
So, and just to point out that they're asserting that there was only one way of pronouncing it. Now, we're not arguing that Muhammad wasn't also another way of pronouncing it, but
we're not saying it wasn't a way, but we're saying it's not the only way, because, as we say, we've got Greek texts that have a different pronunciation.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Name.
It's still Muhammad.
If you go to anything, any book, any newspaper, anyone, and just someone writing their name Muhammad, they're not going to be writing their name with these vowels. They're going to be writing their name exactly like this. This is what the name looks like.
In the Arab world, this is how people write the name Muhammad. They don't always add in these marks. Why? Because everybody knows what it is. These extra marks is to help maybe non-Arab speakers, or people who are starting to learn, or people who don't know. If it's already known, you don't need the extra marks, because people know. You can see it looks similar. So you look at it as someone who knows the language already and go, oh, this is Muhammad.
See, it looks similar. Hang on a second. It looks similar. See, again, this is, they can say that because of 1400 years of Islam and 1400 years of the Prophet Muhammad. See, again, it's a straw man. Did you see what you said? It looks similar. The person looking at today can look at it and say, oh, okay, we know how to read it because we're used to it. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the emergence of this so-called religion, or the emergence of Islam, the origins of Islam. Okay, there wouldn't have been a Prophet Muhammad. Let's say the sin is true, right? There wasn't a Prophet Muhammad before 610, right? Yeah. So so you can't say that someone back then looking at those 4 consonants would have pronounced it that way. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, especially because in many parts of the Middle East at that time, Aramaic was the dominant language.
It was. Aramaic was the lingua franca. That's right. And a lot of these areas, especially the Holy Land, they were writing in Greek as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, and my argument then is, all right, prove to me that all your rules that you know about with Arabic grammar, and I'm not disputing any of those, all right, did they exist back then? If Arabic grammar wasn't formulated the way it is today back then, if it was only brought in, let's say the diacritics were brought in over another 100 years, whatever, when was the grammar crystallized? When was that all finalized? Until they can show that was finalized in 610 or 620 or 630, we're not obliged to. I don't think we're obliged to accept their reasoning, because it's a redacting. They're redacting back today's knowledge about Arabic onto them.
Yeah. Well, I can give a quick, simple problem with their reasoning with the pronunciation. How would you pronounce the word MEAN?
MEAN. Well, in English, in English, you could pronounce it mean, you could pronounce it mean, you could pronounce it. It depends on. See, yeah. There's an English convention that when you put E and A together, it's E. That's a convention. That's a linguistic convention. Yeah. And if you don't know that convention, in Gaelic, it's probably different.
Well, yeah, in even just going back a few decades in Ireland, and even today, if you go to certain parts of Ireland, some will pronounce it mean, and others will pronounce it main.
Yes. Yes.
And but if you were to consult a grammar dictionary, whatever it might be, you'd be told actually, well, that's not the textbook pronunciation, and so it takes a certain. I don't know if this is too strong a word, but it takes a certain arrogance to say that because a grammar is such a way in a textbook that was the only way that it was ever pronounced. I think people tend to vary the pronunciation quite a bit. There's like even between ourselves, between an Irish accent and an Australian accent, there's quite a difference in terms of how we pronounce vowels, etc.
That's right. And notice you said, dictionary. See, my challenge is find me an Arabic dictionary or a lectionary or a lexicon, okay,
Yeah.
from the 7th century.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about the 7th century. We're not talking about today, or and with all due respect to Jai and DOC, and I'm sure they're fantastic Arabic speakers and fantastic Arabic grammarians, but that really isn't relevant. We're talking about the 7th century.
That the first letter has a fatha. The second letter has a sukoon, like a pause. The third letter has a fatha, which is a vowel, and the third letter has a sukoon, a pause. You're assuming. You can also assume differently, which Jai will get into.
We'll get into that, yeah.
So if you don't know Muhammad, you don't always call it Mahmad. You can assume different marks and a different way of saying it if you don't know it.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's today's rules.
Yeah.
And those rules might have been around for hundreds of years. I mean, they might not be today. They might have been before. I'm not going to speculate exactly when they were put in, but they have to prove. See, they have to prove that, because they're making the truth claim. Remember, they're making the claim here, right? So they have to show me that those rules were in place in 630. AD 630. That's what they have to show. And if they can't, then we're not obliged to accept their reasoning. I'm sorry, with all due respect.
Yeah. And as well as that, they have to prove that it's universal as well.
Yeah.
And that there aren't regional variants, which kind of brings to mind one of the problems for the Quran is the fact that there are so many variants of pronunciation. So you can't have it both ways. On the one hand, you say, well, this is the way it was pronounced consistently, and on the other hand, there's a ton of variants.
Well,
I suppose there's a spectrum, obviously, between the two.
Yeah. I mean, is there any more that do you think there's more to their argument, or they're just going to keep on going around the same sort of grammatical circle?
No, they're going to go into the sort of the meat now of it. So we'll just let them give their argument, and then we can give our counter argument at the end. We'll just let it play for a bit.
We don't use these marks anymore because everybody knows what Muhammad looks like.
All right, here we go.
All right.
Thank you. Let's give her a hand. Abdul, what are you doing? You're not supposed to be clapping. This is shutting you down. You just keep somber for a while, okay? So now it's become mim ha mim dal with no vowels, which means this is a word. It's not Muhammad, but it's Mahmad.
Again, it's not Muhammad. This is just conjecture on his part.
Well, that's Jay's assumption. Yeah, conjecture. That I agree with that.
This is just conjecture on his part. You can read it. We're going to show how many different ways you can read this word, but there's a way for us to know based on, different patterns in Arabic, where you can learn and you can know what the vowels are going to be without even needing to see them because you know the language.
Someone is accusing us of not knowing what we're talking about because apparently people know now, but not in the 6th and 7th century. Prove that to me.
Yeah.
Prove that to me. I can say that actually Muhammad, they would have read it Muhammad because Mahmad makes no sense. As Raymond Ibrahim said, names had meaning. Muhammad, they would actually look at it and think Muhammad because Muhammad means the praised one. Mahmad has no meaning. The word Mahmad in Arabic has no meaning. No one would have named their son Mahmad, and no one would have read it Mahmad. And I'm thinking you're not Arab either, because no Arab, either whether the 6th or 7th century or now, would think Mahmad is a word.
What she's failing to see is that in the wider Semitic family, Mahmad existed in Hebrew and, if I'm not mistaken, also in Aramaic. So it could easily have picked up on that.
There's a million. There's a whole stack of assumptions there that she's making, that no one would have named their child Muhammad, right? It doesn't mean anything. Like it doesn't it could not have been an epithet. There are. She hasn't proved. She or he, because I couldn't see he who said it said prove it to me. Well, I would push back. You prove it to me. You prove to me. yeah, you proved to me that this was not a title. This was not. I won't use the word title because I think that's a bad. It takes us down a pathway that we can't prove. This was not a predicate or a descriptive term used for somebody because they haven't shown any conclusive evidence that it couldn't be, right? Especially for pre-Islam, as we'll get to. Look, so far, I can't see anything that really affects, like, in terms of they may be able to push back against some of the claims that Jay made, maybe a little bit, he may have been a bit exuberant with some of his claims. But in terms of what we're saying, that you got these 4 consonants and that those 4 consonants could be read in a variety of ways, and that, as it says, those 4 consonants can be a name and a title depending on context, or name and an epithet, or name and a predicate depending on context. I don't see any. I mean, I don't know about you, Mel. I mean, do you see anything that really refutes what we're saying?
Not yet. They are going to go into the general rules of how sets of letters are pronounced. So let's allow them to give their case, and they will respond.
Okay, but before we do that, can I just reiterate for our listeners that all is a straw man? It makes no difference unless they can prove that those rules applied in the 7th century.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to keep coming back to that because they're redacting back rules today on the 7th century. They've got to prove that they applied back then. And without a lexicon or without some kind of systematic systematization of the language, they can't do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, we know that they call it Muhammad. So if you're going to pretend that they called it something else, you need to prove that to me.
Okay. Yeah, so anyway, final, just stick around.
We'll show you.
We'll show you if you're interested in what the evidence actually is, stick around. If you're only interested in just regurgitating, if you're only interested in just regurgitating things, then you can do that too. But if you're interested in facts, you're interested in truth, then stick around. We'll show you.
How do we know that? How can we prove that right now? Well, we need to go to John of Damascus, good old John of Damascus. See, John of Damascus was there in the courts of Abdul Malik from 685 to 705. He was a Christian. He was there in Damascus. That's why he's called John of Damascus. He was a treasurer for Abdul Malik. And so he was watching what was happening, and he was seeing that this dispute was happening between the Ishmaelites and those who come in the line of Isaac. The Jews and the Christians come in the line of Isaac, but the Umayyads were Ishmaelites, and they did not have a prophetic line. They didn't have any scripture like the Jews and the Christians had. And yet they controlled now from, by the time Abdul Malik comes to power, from Spain all the way to India and from Turkey all the way to Yemen. So they were the second biggest superpower of their day. The problem is they had no identity. The Byzantine Empire, the other biggest empire that there was the biggest competitor, they had a prophetic line. They had a scripture. They had a whole series of prophets. What did the Ishmaelites have? They needed a prophet, and they needed a book, a revelation that would equal what was going on. So he was watching this, right? He sees this all happening. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't write anything because he's under their employ. So when he retires in 730, now look at the date, 730, we're well into the 8th century. We're 100 years after Muhammad had died, if Muhammad had existed. He then writes his greatest masterpiece. And what does he title it? Look at the title. The Heresy of the Ishmaelites. Why does it say Heresy of the Muslims? Because there were no Muslims that early. Muslims, that word did not exist. We can't find any reference for anybody called Muslims.
Okay, I mean, this is not our main point, but I mean, Muslim is literally in the Quran. So yeah. This is a very, like, I know he wants to focus on, like, you know, the fact that Muslims were called Ishmaelites, they're called Hagarites, they're called Saracens, you know, all the sorts of different names. And then eventually they were called Muslims. So that's much later in, you know, from like European, Western books and things that are writing about Muslims. It wasn't until much later. In fact, they were called like Mohammedans and stuff like that as well. But what were they calling themselves? We see in the Quran.
Muslims.
Yeah. So that's not one of the points that we're going to be one of the major points here. But I just wanted to comment on that since he mentioned it.
Yep. Let's go.
No Muslims. So he calls them Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites. Now we see what's going on. And he talks about this prophet that these Ishmaelites have. This, what does he say? He says that from that tonight, a false prophet called MAHMAD. Now notice he's writing in Greek. In Greek, the vowels are there. Look at the Greek, those who can read Greek. What does it say up there on the top left that's circled? MAHMAD.
Yeah.
All I was going to say is that was just Jay, and this is Jay hypothesizing about what happened and hypothesizing that the Umayyads needed a scripture and they needed a prophet, and he's fine to hypothesize with that. But again, that's hypothesis. So, but he, this is John of Damascus, right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So what that really isn't even relevant to the point here with the MAHMAD.
No, it's not. It's not.
We can just put that aside and just focus on the MAHMAD and how John of Damascus spoke Greek, but he also spoke Arabic because of his position at the time. So he could easily have picked a different pronunciation to reflect Muhammad if that was what he was hearing.
Transliterate a name into another language, you're not going to get the exact pronunciation for that name or for that word, right? So, for example, for those of you who can read Greek, you know that there's no ha sound here either. It just M-A-M-E, and then like what would be like a the, theta, or the will be like a D sound. The closest approximation.
The ha, whether the ha is there or not, isn't the big issue for me. It's the ma or mu, I think, is more relevant. So I think that's
but also
a straw man.
Yeah, it is a straw man, but also they're wrong that says that Greek has no H. It does have a soft H. Yeah. It's called a vasia. So it is a soft H, and so that's a bit of a straw man. But you're right. It is the A and the E vowel. The A and the E vowel is very different to the U and the A vowels. And I disagree with her when she says you can't transliterate one language to another. That's what we do. You know, that like my name in English is spelt a certain way. My name in Greek is spelt a certain way, but with a different vowel. But it's the same sound. In English they use an O, and in Greek they might use an omega, but it's the same O. It's the same O sound, right? So it's what the listener would have heard.
Right. Say I was walking beside a field, right, and I heard the sound of an animal going moo moo. Yeah. And I went, okay, I'm going to write that down. Ma ma.
Yeah. It would. And see, the point is transliterating. Transliterating. It's the same sound, right? It's the same. So you can do that. You can do that if the languages allow it. Right, and if you got the only way you can't do it, this is the only way you can't do it is if one language has no U sound and the other language has no U sound, has an U sound, or vice versa. If they've got the same sounds, you can do it. So I disagree with respect.
Yes, you know what I've often heard as a counter argument is to say, "Oh, they misheard it," but that's just a barmy argument because it is totally within.
John of Damascus misheard it, and so did Sabaeus misheard it, and as we'll see later, Jalad confirms that you can only get Mehmet from Muhammad, you can't get Mehmet from Muhammad, and we've seen that as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, keep going.
This is something that I think would be very relatable to people. If you just look at the names, it's. For those of you who don't know, the most popular name in England, registered baby name for males is Muhammad. But look at all the different variations for how to spell Muhammad just in English. Look at all these variations just in English. So using a transliteration and then trying to backtrack that into the original language. I mean, you can do that. Like a lot of, city names or person names can be done. But as Raymond Abraham pointed out, that you have other documents where you have the Greek and then you have the Arabic right on the side. And we know that's talking about Muhammad.
That English... Sorry, go, you go.
Well, that famous Greek Arabic it's what bilingual text that he's alluding to there has MAHMAD in it, unfortunately
Yeah.
for him. And
Yes.
in the Greek one, they could easily have put a mu sound in there
Yeah.
without any
Greek has a
problem.
mu. Greek has a mu sound. You know.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
as I argue, you know, Greek, like again, you look at how our mouths work. You know, or and u, they're similar, right? So the Greek that's right. Why in Greek sometimes in the not Middle Ages, but sort of during the Ottoman times, he was called Mu'ammeth, right? You know, so but
the,
I was just going to say that. So you go, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. The other thing is, if there were two pronunciations in the 7th century, right, that would explain the variation that's there in the names today. If there was
Yes,
only
well,
one, you can argue, the other ways, a lot of
well,
the spelling differences are not major in terms of pronunciation, but like you could also argue that, for example, the MAHMAD one is because for centuries they did pronounce it that way. So you can
yeah.
it's not necessarily the strongest argument
I
he's making.
no. I think I would dismiss what they're saying here because again, we're talking about redaction, right?
Yeah.
None of that proves that in the 7th century there weren't two different pronunciations or more than one pronunciation, right?
Yeah.
And all we have to do is show that from the 7th century there was more than one pronunciation, and we've made our case, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have to. We can speculate as to why there were more than one pronunciation. That's a different question altogether. All right. So, I mean, so I don't think this is persuasive at all. So, I mean, so what if in the 21st century you've got all the different Muhammad spellings? Makes no difference.
Yeah, exactly. Let's carry on and let's see if he gets to the point here.
Not MAHMAD or one of the other many other vocalizations that you can make.
Yeah, because you've transliterated it twice. First from the Arabic to Greek, and now from Greek to English. There's no ha in Greek, and there's no ha in English. That's why instead of the ha, they use the h. That doesn't mean it's not the same person. That's the error.
I'm not quite sure what is she trying to say, that they were not the same person? I don't quite follow.
Well, she's basically saying just because John of Damascus is basically given a different picture of Muhammad as just a heretic, it doesn't. She's not actually saying what we're saying is that there was a historical person. What we're arguing actually is actually similar to what she's saying, which is yes, there was a historical person. We're happy to agree with that, but maybe he's a little bit different.
Yes, he's not the Muhammad of the sin. Yeah.
Yeah. I think she's assuming that John of Damascus is somehow wrong about the specifics about Muhammad's life, which is strange because he's living in the 8th century. He's a slight advantage, let's say, than people living in this century. He could still be wrong, but he's definitely closer to the time. So okay, he could still be wrong, but if he's getting it wrong as well, that just goes to show how unreliable everything else is since then.
Well, I would argue that he's actually probably more likely to be right, because what's the problem that Jai and DOC and all of us have when we what's the one problem we have to overcome when we are talking about Muhammad, right? Okay, we're prejudiced, aren't we, initially, because we've all read the sin.
Yeah.
John didn't have the sin.
Yeah.
He didn't have the sirah. He had whatever the information was there. You see? So it was unfiltered, unbiased by Ibn Hishaq or Ibn Hisham or Al-Bukhari or whatever. So I would tend to go with John.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Hopefully they get to the point and give their main argument.
I know.
Let's see.
Inside seat, and he writes his greatest piece. And he says, this MAHMAD, this new prophet, this Aryan monk who get your material from, and he goes on, he fabricates his own heresy, and then he talks about that this monk has 4 books. The book of the cow, ooh, that's Surah 2 in the Quran today. The book of the women, that's Surah 4 in the Quran today. The book of the table, that's Surah 5 of the Quran today. And the book of the camel. There is no surah called the camel. But what are 4 books doing?
All right, so this is something kind of a side note here. Something a lot of people bring up, and they to try to discredit Saint John of Damascus. Now, Jay's not doing that here, but a lot of people do, and they say, like Jay said, he talks about the book of the cow, which we know is Surah 2, still has that name. The book of the woman, okay, we know that still has a name. The book of the table, we know that. Then there's this book of the she-camel. And we're going to show you guys that actually, again, this is not there's not like a refutation here of like Jay or anything like that, but this is more of a point just to kind of vindicate St. John of Damascus. Yeah. So this is a manuscript right here that you have the scholar commenting on it on X, and Sean Anthony, another scholar of Islam, mentions that what's interesting about this particular manuscript is that instead of Surat al-Shams, which is chapter 91, it's not titled Surat al-Shams.
They gave it a different title.
A different title.
Called Surat al-Naqa. What does the word Naqa mean?
She-camel.
She-camel. So actually it did exist.
And so he actually says this actually explains in part why John Damascene refers to the writing or the graphy, which is the writing or the book about the she-camel of God. So he was talking about chapter 91,
which still exists, but it's just under a different name today.
And then you have another scholar here saying that he actually found this really interesting because he said, I found this nomenclature in 4 other old Quranic manuscripts, and he gives you the names of the manuscripts there. So actually, there are multiple Quranic manuscripts that actually still maintain that name. So this is more like a side point. Like I said, it's not really refuting what Jay is saying, other than just, I mean, that is, there is actually evidence that Surah 91 was called, instead of the chapter of the sun, it's called the chapter of the she-camel.
So the point that they're making here is they acknowledge that John of Damascus, while he talks about 4 books that they actually match up with the 4 surahs in the Quran. So they're acknowledging that John of Damascus knows something. Okay. But that kind of is a little bit of diversion. So what I'm going to do is just try and skip to...
it's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, let's skip. Let's see if I can get to the point where he talks about the grammar, and then we can respond to that.
Can I just pause you for a second? I want to make a comment on what she just said. She said, anyone who knows Arabic can read that and knows what it says. What's the problem with that? She's reading it from the perspective. She knows Arabic. She knows the Arabic conventions that have been made in the 21st century or whenever they were made, right? So she can then interpret it because she knows enough of it, right? But the question is, where were those conventions in the 7th century? And could people in the 7th century have read it that way, or did they read it that way? They still haven't proven. And I know I sound like a broken record here, Mel, but I want you the audience to get that they're redacting back. It's a bit anachronistic, really. They're using their 21st century knowledge of Arabic and redacting it back onto a 7th century source or a 7th century word.
The countless readings down through the centuries of the Quran are precisely because they couldn't know for certain how to pronounce
that's right.
Or how to read it.
Now, and even if the word MHMD in the Quran, which was only 4 times, as we know, was always MHMD or Mimha Mimdal, still doesn't tell us how to pronounce it, and it still doesn't prove that it was pronounced Muhammad.
Yeah.
In Arabic, it is not a name, it is a title. It means the praised one, the blessed one, the anointed one, or even the Messiah.
Okay, guys.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
It does.
We're not. I think Jay did acknowledge he made a mistake, and he jumped ahead of what we were saying.
Yes.
So, and this is the problem with passing on information, is while this term MAHMAD was associated with a messianic figure, that's not the same thing as saying that MAHMAD literally means Messiah, and that's just,
let me be even more nuanced. In some contexts, it was associated with a messianic figure, but not in Oman. And not in Oman in the 5th century BC, and certainly not on the Zoroastrian coins that have MAHMAD and the fire altars. I mean, we don't know who that was about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so in some context, and we got in certain contexts, and that way I think we can be we can avoid being misrepresented.
Yeah. Now, even the bit where it's not a name but a title, again, we would say that it depends on context. It could be either.
Yes. Yes.
And we would rather not use the word title there as well.
No, that's right.
Okay.
No one in the world is going to tell you that whatever vocalization you have for MHMD, whether you want to say it's Muhammad or Mahmad or whatever vocalization you want, no one is going to tell you that it means the Messiah or the Anointed One or even the Blessed One. Blessed One is a little closer because it's talking about someone who's praised. You could say blessed maybe, but the Anointed One or the Messiah,
No.
that is completely false. That's completely false. This is misinformation. So it's very dangerous that over 1 million people have seen this lecture, and this is his foundational leading up to everything else he's talking about. His foundations are off, and he's teaching people false information. There's nothing in the world you can do to prove that Muhammad or Muhammad, any of the various combinations, means the Messiah or the Anointed One. This is completely false.
Guys, Mahmad is not an Arabic word. I'm going to say it again. Mahmad in that pronunciation is not an Arabic word. If it is, I want a dictionary from any time frame. The praised one is Muhammad. The blessed one is Al-Mubarak. The anointed one is Al-Masih.
Yeah.
Mahmad doesn't exist in Arabic. I'm saying it here. I'm saying it here.
Pause that. She actually agrees with us. If you go back, she says, could be the anointed one or the blessed one, but Messiah, completely false. Did you pick that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever was speaking, I saw that, they actually agree with us. That's exactly what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want everyone to pick that they have actually agreed with our position.
I want a dictionary from any time frame. The praised one is Muhammad. The blessed one is Al-Mubarak. The anointed one is Al-Masih.
Yeah.
Mahmad doesn't exist in Arabic. I'm saying it here. I'm saying it here. Mahmad doesn't exist in Arabic. You have Muhammad, which means the praised one. The blessed one is a different name, Al-Mubarak. The anointed one is Al-Masih. Please, all my brothers and sisters, if you're going to make wild claims like that, you need a dictionary definition. I don't mind if it's ancient. I don't mind if it's a classical dictionary, an ancient dictionary, or even a modern dictionary. You can't make things up.
Dr. Al-Jalad will have something to say about that a little bit later.
Yeah. Is it paused? I just want to comment that she's saying, it appears that she's saying that Mahmad does not equal Messiah in Arabic. Fine, agree with that. Have we ever said that? Yeah. We've never said that, right? And so they are actually agreeing with our argument. And I want to, sorry for talking over before, but maybe I should say it now, that I want to emphasize that they're agreeing with our argument. It's a description of somebody, praiseworthy, blessed, but we're not saying it means Messiah, and we've never said that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's just sometimes things people fill in the blanks a little bit. You can say one thing and then say another thing, and then people will join the two together and come up with a conclusion. Unfortunately,
yeah.
And in fairness to Jay here, Jay is a person who's taken in information from an awful lot of sources, and he's bound to make the odd mistake here or there, and he's willing to admit it when he has made a mistake as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to play on, and just hopefully they'll get to the grammar part here.
This hopefully this is easy to keep up with here, but here we have Muhammad written in Arabic, or if you just want to do MHMD. Guess what? This letter could also be read as a Jim, which is the J sound.
Now, I just want to interrupt here for a second. I think he would be better off focusing on the vowelization and not confusing it with the rasm, because I think
Yeah,
that's it's
yeah, this is a superfluous argument. This doesn't affect our position at all.
Or it could be read as a kha, which is a kha sound. And this letter, dal, can also be read as dal, a tha sound. So you can have multiple combinations. If you're going to do what J. Smith is doing here,
Just pretend.
Why? And you just say, hey, the possibilities are endless, which, by the way, this is an argument that we can make against many different words in the Quran. This is just not one of them. This is just not one of them. And I'll give examples. I'll show you guys what I mean. So I'll go into more.
That's why
examples here.
I say if you go back to the Arab world and present this, they'll laugh you out the room.
Yeah.
You pretending that the Arabs didn't know what the Messiah was, they knew for thousands of years. They had Christians before Muhammad came. Do you think they called Jesus Muhammad?
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
No, I'm not going to waste time on this, but he gives lots of different ways you could interpret it if you put in dots, and I don't think, as I say, it's not very relevant. So I'm going to
it isn't.
skip on.
Now we're adding. So those are the consonantal marks. Now we can add in diacritical marks,
which are extra marks on
So
top.
every one of those letters we just showed you, all 6 combinations, and hopefully someone is good at math. Maybe one of you guys can double check our work here, or you can do something like this, have some fun with this. But you can say, so instead of it starting with a mu, like Muhammad, he's saying it starts with the M-A, Mahmad. It could also be me, like Mehmed or something like that.
Yeah, like why does he assume it's the ma?
So there's 3 different.
It could be mu or me.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the word, there's 3 different vowel options, possibilities that you can choose from. Ma, mu, mi. Okay? And then when it's in the middle, you can do what's called like a shadda, which is a doubling of the letter, which is what we have. Muhammad. Okay? And so you can do the same thing.
You
like
can say,
ma,
you can say Muhammad.
Mi. And then the end letter, it's at the end, so it kind of stops there, so you don't put a vowel on that. But
you can say Muhammad or Muhammad or Muhammad, which is everyone knows. So why are you assuming it's Muhammad? That's my question. Where you get that from?
So check this out. So if we just take the base, and then we look at the different vowel possibilities, the M at the beginning, really you can only read that in one way. It's an M. Yeah. So that's only one way. But there's 3 different vowels you can link it with. So you do 1 times 3. So there's 3 possibilities.
Ma, mi, mu.
Right. Ma, mi, mu. Right?
Okay.
Now the ha, you can actually do ha, kha, or jim. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's 3 different consonants that you can do. Ha, jim, kha.
Oh, look, I think this is all superfluous, really. I see what they're saying, that there can be multiple different... They're just doing a probability exercise on how many different words you can get with the different diacritics and the different vowels, right? And yes, you can say, well, why has Jay assumed it's Mahmed? Why not Mihmud? Why not, And we have to... I think to cut to the chase, we say Mahmed because we have like a Rosetta Stone. We have Sabaeus. We have John of Damascus. They're using those vowels. We have them in Greek, So we know that it was Mahmed or Mahmed, right?
Exactly.
And so all of this stuff, while is all correct, is really superfluous in my opinion. I mean, again, I want to go back and the only other comment I want to keep on, and I'm sorry for your listeners, they're going to get sick of me saying this, but all they're doing here is based on modern Arabic grammar rules, right? Show me the Arabic grammatical dictionary or lexicon from the 7th century that we could use to interpret this.
Now, just to fight in their corner first, if I may, I believe there is an Arabic dictionary from the 9th century, and they might argue that it's close enough to the time to give an idea of what the grammar was.
No, well, I disagree. That's 9th century. You got to give me 7th century. The fact that there were no diacritics in the 7th century and things were being formed, I'm sorry, that's your assumption that it's close enough. You can make that assertion, but that's just an assertion. You got to prove it, right? And the fact that the Greek text that we have show that the MAHMAD was a pronunciation that persists, as Al-Jalad will show us, doesn't square with that. It doesn't explain that. So
So hit on. He does go into. He shows the huge amount of possibilities, but then what he goes on to say is actually in reality in a language, not all of these possibilities exist in reality, and so he narrows it down again.
Fair enough.
Okay, so
okay, fair enough.
So he shows all the different possibilities. Okay, and then let me just move on.
You can vocalize that. If you want to take Jace critiques that seriously, there's 3 different ways you can vocalize it, right? In terms of consonants, right here.
So
there's actually 6 total, but then you start adding in vowels, and the possibilities are endless.
We're trying to say that it's not hard to make it sound like MAHMAD in the Hebrew, because there are 288 possibilities. And to try and make it sound like something about the Lord Jesus that happened to be in Hebrew, another language, I don't know what kind of scholarship that is, because you're assuming it's a kha when it's a ha sound. You're assuming the vowels are where you want them to sound like MAHMAD when you have no indication of any of that.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to say. To approximate one of 288 possibilities with something that you want to make it sound like in the Hebrew, it's almost like playing a game. You're gonna hit one of them.
There's more.
The problem there is they're arguing that we're trying to push the MAHMAD thing as if we are talking in a vacuum, but we actually have instances.
That's my point. Yeah, here's my argument for pushback. Not only do we have the Sabaeus text, which is Mamet, right? But we also have the Hebrew Bible, Mahmadin, right? So we have that we have that pronunciation. We have that pronunciation that's stable, and so you've got from 1000 BC when Solomon, or we presume when Song of Solomon was being composed. I won't get into the technicalities of when the manuscripts and all that, but if we assume that pronunciation was stable all the way to the Masoretes, right? And you've got, so that's Mahmed or Mahmad, and then you've got John of you've got Sabaeus saying it's Mahmed, and then you got John, which is 7th century. And then you've got John of Damascus, 8th century. Look, I'm sorry, but we're not arguing from a vacuum. We are actually standing on the evidence. They're the ones that are they're arguing from a vacuum. I'm sorry. They're bringing their 21st century Arabic knowledge and reimposing it on the consonants.
Yeah, and a point that you mentioned earlier, there is a Syriac example where they did write Muhammad.
Yes.
So like they put a W, so that was possible there. They could put it in whenever they wanted.
Yeah,
sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't.
Yeah, and that's right, and that's Al-Jalad what he's saying, because it's a W, it's not a vowel, but it's the vav, that consonant, and Al-Jalad says that means it's a mu. I'm happy to defer to that, right? But then why did Sabaeus call him Mahmed?
Yeah,
you see, and as we'll see, I'm sure you're going to play it at some point where Al-Jalad says that the 2 pronunciations persisted.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, let's see. We'll just run to the end of this argument, and then we're going to move on and get a pushback.
There's just a very basic form here. If you want to say the word, he knew. Okay, he knew. Alima, he knew. Okay.
Alima, yeah.
So alima, right? That's the very basic form of it. Okay, and then if that's a very big, that's form 1. And then the active participle, okay, this is alim, a scholar, someone who knows. So these are patterns that these verbs follow, and you can do this to different forms. We only need to go to form 2 to show you guys to get the point that we're making. So alima means he knew, and then with a shed, you put a shedda
in
for
the
middle. That's why I put the blue there, so you guys can follow it here.
It's allama.
Alima means that he made it known.
Yeah,
right?
like he taught it.
He made known, he taught it. So then if you want to put that in the active participle form, it's mu'allim. Mu'allim. It means a teacher, which is the one who makes something known.
And then if you want to say the person got educated, it's mu'allam.
So mu'allam, mu'allam.
Mu'allim, mu'allam. So you see that the difference is so slight, and you get like a different form. It tells you who did what. It tells you what's been done, and who is the doer, and who is the person done to.
Okay. Now, what's important here is that this is how the language works. So these are patterns that you can follow. You just take any verb and you can follow certain patterns. So here's another one. You guys have probably heard, Muslims using the word jahil before. Jahil.
Yeah, they always call it
So if you want to say that somebody was ignorant, jahila.
Yeah.
Jahila. And then that in the active participle form is jahil, which means someone who's ignorant.
And jahala
with the doubling on the H.
He made someone
ignorant. But you guys see what's going on here. Now we're going to go back to the active forms and passive forms.
Oh, it has an M.
You guys are going to see that these are certain patterns. So it's not just for the word Muhammad. Like, we have no idea how to pronounce this word Muhammad. We don't know what this word. No, we're gonna show you guys that if you just know, works for Arabic. It works for Hebrew. It works for any Semitic language. They have roots, and then these roots form basic verbal patterns. And these I'll give you guys a real life example of this. I'm gonna daughter of Christ. I'm gonna have her read something. She doesn't even know what it is. I'm gonna have her read it, and then I'm gonna ask her, how does she know that it's in this particular form?
He's right, because he didn't tell me this.
I didn't tell her this before.
I'm a bit nervous now, but you see here the M came in.
Yep.
Mujahil.
Yeah. Mujahil.
One who causes ignorance. It sounds a bit like Muhammad, doesn't it?
Yep.
Mujahil.
Now that is where
Mujahil, it's the one who has made ignorance. Sounds like Muhammad.
Yeah. It's the same patterns here. Look.
The M is what makes it like the passive. What makes it passive.
Yep. Something happened. Yeah.
So that's why Muhammad is the praised one. He's passive. He's got the M at the beginning, means that this has been done.
We'll show it. We have it here. Yeah. I was just going to say, they say this is why Muhammad could be the praised one. It's passive. Okay, fine. But that doesn't negate any of our arguments. It's still a descriptive title of someone praised, someone who's being praised, right? And that's why I wanted at the outset to say that we are not saying that MAHMAD equals Messiah. We're not saying that. We're saying it's a descriptive term. They still haven't shown that all of these rules and conventions operated in the 7th century. They still haven't shown that, and so that's an assumption. But even if we give them the benefit of that doubt, and even if we assume that, well, we have Muhammad meaning someone who is intensely praised. Yeah. One who praises, or Muhammad there down the bottom, someone who is intensely praised. Okay. Is that not what we have been saying that the word means, or how it's isn't that how we have been saying that it was used?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
so thank you, Giant. Sorry, I was just going to say thank you, Giant DSC. You've made our point for us.
Yeah, and it's in that context, the word could be meaningful for people in the sense that it can be a name and have this description, which is very, has got a great lot of meaning to it, and both can apply.
Yeah, I mean, it's like in today, they talk about, words can be titles and names, and Arabic. A lot of Arabic names are honorifics, like Ali, which means the exalted one, and Ali, right? Okay, that's fine. Like, I mean, it's the same in a lot of Catholic countries. Like, in the Philippines, for example, they name their kids Redemption and Resurrection. But when the person reads the Bible and says the resurrection of Jesus, that person's not saying, "Oh, hang on, there's me. I'm in the Bible." No,
exactly.
This is talk. Yeah. You see, so you use the context to differentiate which one is which. That's the key.
Yeah.
Context, and I keep coming back. What we are saying is, in a particular context, MAHMAD had a certain meaning. In another context, it could have had another meaning.
Exactly. Okay.
So now we're on the verb hamida. Hamida.
He praised.
Okay, he praised. Now, if you want to put that in the active participle form, it's hamid, means one who praises. Okay. Now the second form. So this is the second form of the verb. This is very basic. This is just basic of Arabic. And like I said, you same with Hebrew. You can do this with any verb, guys. Any verb in the like. So for those of you guys who are interested in learning Semitic languages, there's a very logical pattern that the verbs follow. So if you just learn this pattern, you don't, because this is what a lot of learners of Arabic and Hebrew, they get confused. Like, how do I read it without the dots and stuff like that? How do I read it without the dots? Well, once you learn the patterns and you internalize the rules,
You don't need
the dots, and it just works in a logical pattern. So now
rules were those patterns and those rules were applied. Especially, see, you can't compare it with Hebrew, because Hebrew was already well established by the time of the 7th century AD. Okay, Arabic, as we see, the dots and the vowels were still being formed. We don't know that what the grammatical conventions were. Even now, as Al-Jalad says in his videos, there's a lot of guesswork and assumptions he's got to do to try and put together an alphabet of some of these pre-Islamic Arabic scripts he's finding.
we're going to go to the second form, okay, or the second verbal form, and this is
It's Hammada.
With two M's.
Yeah.
Hammada.
Sounds like Muhammad,
Okay.
doesn't it?
Now this is the active form of
It's Muhammad,
mid.
one who praises intensely, and if he's being praised, then it's Muhammad.
One who is intensely praised.
So the M here actually it's what makes it passive, and it works for verbs generally. Like to be educated is muallam, to be made ignorant is mujahal, and to be intensely praised is Muhammad. So the M makes it passive. That's how I know it's Muhammad and not Mahmad.
So
Because it's in the passive
participle
form of the verb.
So guys,
That's how we know.
So guys, look at the blue. So the blue match. So you have the mu, and then you fill it in with the blank. So for this letter has the letter ayn. So you put the ayn in there. Then this one has the letter J. So you put the jim in there. This one has the ha. So you put the ha in there. But then the blue all stays the same. So you double this. You put a shadda on the for example the lam here, and then the ha here, and then the meme here, and then the last vowel is the same. So what we're saying is, guys, if you know the language, you learn the patterns, you learn the forms, it's not a mystery as to what these words mean. And this is how you can know what they mean without having the dots, without having the vowels.
That's how I sure that Mahmad is not the praised one.
So
Because it's not correct in the verb, the passive verb. The praised one, the blessed one, the whatever one, it's something passive. It's been done too. He's being blessed. He's been praised.
Yeah.
That means it's Muhammad. It can't be Mahmad, because Mahmad doesn't mean anything. It's not grammatically correct.
Exactly. Like 99% of these are just impossible in Arabic. These combinations, these are impossible, grammatically impossible.
That's how the Arabs know how to read. That's why we say, if you take these arguments to the Arab world, they'll laugh you out the room.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nothing to say to refute any of their very fine presentation of modern day Arabic grammar, except that, again, it assumes that we can't assume that the 7th century Arabs used that. But even if they did, all right, it doesn't change, it doesn't affect, it doesn't explain why did Sabaeus write it as Mamet, and why did John write it as Mahmed? It doesn't. So if those patterns exist today, then they either didn't exist in the 7th century, or they weren't universally applied.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's probably a good time to move on to hearing from Professor Al-Jalad, because I think he'll make our point for us.
I think there's a tiny bit more, and then we'll definitely we'll move on.
Okay.
Yeah. Just go straight into the discussion on Mahmad.
Absolutely. So if I may, I'm going to go into what I think is very central in my mind, that I wanted to really ask about this, because this has been kind of building up. Everyone's, I think, anticipating this, and that is, what about the archaeology of Muhammad? What about the archaeology of early Islam? I mean, is there, specifically as it's related to some of the language groups and this recent decipherment that you've had, Is there some relationship? I mean, maybe something you could shed light on this. I don't know. I'm just curious.
Look, this area is very far in space and time. Okay. I don't have any evidence that any of these inscriptions were produced by people on the eve of Islam at all. But one of the first words that I read in the corpus when I was looking through it after I had deciphered script, one of the first words that I read was Ma Mim Ha Mim Dal, which looks like Muhammad. And I said, whoa, this writing is so rare. I said, this is in one of Gerald, in fact, there. And I saw it with my eyes because I was in Oman, what is it? A couple of weeks ago, I was in Oman. And I was doing field work in these areas, exploring these caves. And I came across this inscription. I saw it with my eyes very clearly, Muhammad, as you like. Why is that interesting? Oh boy, why is that interesting? It's interesting because in Islamic studies, in the West, we can at least say, there is a growing trend of what you call Muhammad mythicism. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it means the people who don't think Muhammad existed or that, the character, whatever the case is, I say all of that whole discussion is beyond, that's not something that I engage in. It's beyond what my material can speak to. Right.
But is this an academic, serious, peer-reviewed question amongst Western scholars?
I don't know. I don't. It is. I don't know about. It is a theory that is advanced in scholarly. It has been advanced in scholarly publications. It is not in any sense a theory that has won many adherents. It is not in any sense a theory that's convinced many. And most people don't engage with it. So, for example, my colleague, Sean Anthony, who wrote, I think, the definitive book on how to use early sources to know about the historical Muhammad. You know Sean Anthony quite well. You've interviewed him.
We did one on that book, actually. Yeah.
Right. So he doesn't waste much ink dealing with mythicism.
Right.
You see what I mean? It's not taken seriously, but it exists. It's there. It's taken seriously outside of academic circles more so, but maybe the reasons for that are not coming from the evidence. I don't know. Again,
point out there that in the way he views mythicism, is there are a group of people denying any historical figure whatsoever. But there is a niche of people such as myself, yourself. We're not saying there was no person. We're just saying that the standard Islamic narrative is wrong. Same as,
that's right.
For example, we have the Gospels about Jesus, which are from the same century, which Christians, and not even just Christians, other people of no faith, can trust as being historically accurate. Whereas the Gnostic writings,
that's it. That's right.
We would reject them out of hand. They're late and they're completely different. And, so the standard Islamic narrative, I would argue, is more like the Gnostics, whereas 7th century sources that refer in very slim detail about a figure called MAHMAD or Muhammad, that I would consider more historical. That's where I would position myself.
Yes, and when you look, I think you've got to look at all of the information. That's why in the Torpedoes channel, I look at not just the archaeology, but all the written sources, etc. It paints a picture of whoever this person was. It doesn't paint the picture of the Muhammad of the sin. That's not the picture that we get. We get a picture, but it's not that picture, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
This is not my thing. But there is a question here that's quite interesting. One of the arguments for mythicism, for Muhammad mythicism, is that we've understood the name Muhammad all wrong. See, we think Muhammad is the name of a prophet, but it's not. It's a title. It's a title. It's a depraised one. Okay, it's a title, and it's a title of Jesus, for example. So it's all crypto-Christian and what have you. And one of the things that you can point to saying it's a title is you can look at the Sabaic. There's a very famous Sabaic inscription where a deity that's called Rabhud, which means Lord of the Jews. This is a god, obviously the monotheistic god. is then given the title Bi Muhammad. Or B is sort of like an oath particle. It introduces the name of gods. And so Muhammad must be the title then, or is understood to be the title of this. It's understood to be the title of this Rabhud. Huh? So Lord of the Jews, highly praised. Okay? Or most praised, as you like, right?
We've referred to before the 523 AD one.
That's right.
Where we see it clearly used as a description of God.
Yeah.
Potentially has a messianic connotation, but that's arguable. But it certainly does have the direct meaning of highly praised.
It's not the Muhammad of the sin. That's the point.
No, that is
it's
point.
50 years before he was even born, approximately.
Yes. Yeah.
So they'll say, so the argument goes is like, look, so this is evidence that Muhammad is a title. Okay? And it's applied to the Lord of the Jews. So this could be a title that can be applied to Christ as well. Fine. But then you do have the fact that Muhammad is a title. Okay?
Gotcha.
And you have this inscription that says, but then at the same time, what people neglect is that although rare, Mim Ha Mim Dal is a name, a proper anthroponym, a name of individuals in inscriptions around Arabia. You have it in Safietic, it's very rare. Could be Mahmud, could be Muhammad, could be a number of things. But so could the MHMD of Rabbi Yahud, right? It doesn't have to be Muhammad either. It could be anything else. Okay, fine. There's an inscription from southern from the Yemeni frontier that's by a guy, just a random guy called Muhammadum, right? Man, Muhammad. Okay, so whatever. So I don't think any.
Last year's NAPSI, I did go through 3 or 4
Yes.
different examples.
Yes,
of that.
I saw those. Yes.
So we're not denying that it was ever used as a name. Obviously, this was centuries before, but there seems to be over the centuries. Sometimes they're using it as a title, or we prefer a description, and sometimes uses as a name. Now he's going a lot further than we're prepared to go, in terms of he's willing to use the word title, whereas we kind of step back from that.
Yeah. Does he get to the inscription that he found in Oman, which talked about Ma'ali Mahmad or Shemesh?
Yes. He mentions actually I have the Mali one. If you want me to jump to the Mali one.
Yes, I think that's good because he's talked about the Yemeni inscription. I think this is a good one to jump to that one.
Show a couple of them, but there's a couple of very interesting inscriptions that are worth discussing. So you have some that are genealogies, so and so bar so and so bar so and so. But I'm reminded of one text which you can show. It's very nice. It's a prayer. And it begins with the verb dawi, which means to heal. And then it calls upon a deity called Shams, or Shams, probably Shams. And then Shams has the epithet Ma'al. Ma'al is an epithet, or Ma'ali is an epithet which means exalted, high. And then it says Dawi, which means heal, and it asks to heal a woman called Shunnat Bart Ja'far. Ja'far is the Arabic Ja'far, in fact, Jafar from Aladdin. Here's the name in the inscription. So heal Shunnat Bart Ja'far. The inscription tells us that they worship the deity, one of the deities that they worship is the deity Shams, or Shemesh, right? Shamshu. This is Shamash, right? This is the solar deity, the sun god, the pan-Semitic solar deity, and he was being worshipped here in ancient East Arabia. Okay?
Wow.
And we have many prayers to him. And we also know, which is very interesting, is that Shamash is a male in Mesopotamia. In the north, he's a male. The god is a male, whereas in ancient Yemen, it's a female.
I love that.
Yeah, we know it's male because the adjective exalted is ma'al. Ma'al, exalted, it's masculine. It's not ma'alit or something of the sort. So we have ma'al, shams ma'al. Beautiful. If that evidence is necessarily conclusive. If you want to argue that Muhammad is not his name because it's used as a title, then you have to, what are you going to do with the inscriptions where it's used as a name? You say, oh no, those don't count. You do it the other way around. Okay, there's nothing decisive here.
Pause there. He says, there's nothing decisive here. Remember, he says there's nothing decisive. You're not locked into a name. You're not locked into an epithet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree. And it's a good reminder to all of us, we don't need to
Yeah.
have these back and forth battles over, okay, you're the title people, we're the name people, or any of that. We need to be open.
And it's the context. We have to look at in each context.
Yeah. And actually, I think he goes on to say that in some situations, the context is not clear enough for us to determine which it is.
But here I am encountering an inscription in the Far, in the Fari script, just deciphered as Mim Ha Mim Dal. But that inscription was just sitting there, just Muhammad. What does it mean? I have no idea. What does it mean? I have no idea.
And this is supposed to be, just so we're tracking the dating of this, at least an idea. I know that we haven't had conclusive work. Roughly 500 BCE up to, you would say, first few centuries, the Common Era, maybe, or something.
Absolutely perfect. End of the first, second half of the first millennium BC. Okay?
Gotcha.
So you have Muhammad there. So what is this? Then I was looking at another inscription. We could show it up here. So it's a very nice one. These are all on Oceanic. You can look at them on Oceanic. It's a very nice one. So we remember the one we talked about, where was this prayer for Shams Ma'al, exalted sun, to heal this woman called Sunnat Bart Ga'far. Okay, good. This here is a different genre. One of the things the ancient Arabians love to do, it's very interesting, is to draw animals, carve them, draw them, and then dedicate them to gods. It's nice. It's very. You've had your children do this to you. They draw something and they say, "Daddy, this is for you." Here, that's cute. So it's sort of the same idea. And what they'll do is they'll write an inscription sometimes saying this is for the gods. So you have this in Safavidic. They draw this, and this drawing is dedicated to the god so and so, and what have you. Now, the spiritual significance of that is beyond our ability to know. We can guess at it, but we can't know. There is the same genre seems to appear in Al-Fari, where you have the relative pronoun za, that which is for li, and then it's the divine name Ma'al, exalted. Very nice. Exalted. Okay, cool. That which is for the exalted. Nice. Now we know exalted is the epithet of who? Remember? Of the
Muhammad.
sun. Of the sun.
Oh, okay.
Exalted.
Okay. Got it. I thought highly
Exalted.
praised. I'm sorry. I'm thinking
But you
praised.
see, now you're on the right track, because that's basically the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Check this out. This inscription says, that which is for Ma'al, the exalted. And then the next word is Muhammad. So that which is for the exalted, the praised exalted one. And then it's a camel and a cow, drawing of a camel and a cow. Beautiful.
So I think he's really shown us, and if I'm not mistaken, this inscription is part of the first millennium BC, right? And he's talking about the exalted, okay, and MAHMAD. So it's not a name, because you wouldn't, he says it. It's the exalted epithet of Shams, the sun god, and it's MAHMAD. So, it's like, and I think I see a progression, and this is not unreasonable. You've got the first millennium, or say 500 BC, right? You've got this, the praiseworthy Shams, the sun god, right? Then we've got 523. We've got praise be the Lord of the Jews. The Lord of the Jews be praised, right? And so is it unreasonable then, and I ask you, Mel, I'm just going to ask the question, is it unreasonable then to say the Lord of the Christians be praised?
Yeah.
For the Christians to say that about their Lord. And maybe the Zoroastrians want to call whatever Ahura Mazda praised, on coins or whatever. I'm just saying that, it's not a long bow to draw if you've already got 1,000 years of precedent in that area where the word MAHMAD is used as a divine descriptor.
Yeah. Like Ali, the exalted, would work very well for Christ, because exalted, the resurrected one, the one that's raised on the cross,
100%.
nicely.
Yeah, and what I love about this video is Al-Jalad has shown us, that the word MAHMAD is not locked into a name. And he says there are inscriptions where it's a name. There are inscriptions where it's he calls it a divine epithet, a title. We can use it an epithet as a description. Again, we got to look at each context, and then we can look at what it means. And I love this video because this inscription, he found it last year apparently. Did he not? This is just a recent finding.
Well, I'm not sure about this specific inscription when he found it, but they've known about the script for 100 years, and he deciphered it on a plane to Oman.
Yes. And this video is only this is a recent video we're talking about.
Yeah, this is only a couple of weeks old at this stage.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to kind of emphasize here is that we don't even have to choose between MAHMAD being just about Jesus in the 7th century, because hypothetically, you could have a person going around who has the name Muhammad or MAHMAD who's talking about Jesus, but is also kind of thinking that maybe he's the Messiah himself.
Yeah.
A bit confused. Sometimes he's talking about Jesus, sometimes about himself. A bit like, sorry to bring in politics, but a certain politician had an AI picture of himself.
We know.
So it's not that far-fetched for someone to kind of have these narcissistic notions of themselves while presenting themselves as a missionary for a belief in, say, Jesus.
Yes. Can we skip forward to where he talks about the pronunciations? I think that's a really important part of the video. If you remember where that was.
I'm not sure, but I'll try, and hopefully we'll get to it pretty quick, and I'll skip if need be.
That which is for Ma'al Muhammad. Here, without a doubt, we have Muhammad being used as a divine epithet, but an epithet of an epithet. So they stack these epithets. You have Muhammad and Ma'al, exalted, praised one. This is beautiful.
Yeah.
Because we know Ma'al is likely the epithet, and we see this across Arabia and beyond. This epithet is used for the sun. So it's very likely that Muhammad in this very ancient context is being used as an epithet of the god Shams, the sun, Shamash. Okay? In this context. It has nothing to do with the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century.
What did you just say? In this context, it has nothing to do with the Prophet Muhammad in the 7th century. In this context. I love that. That's, we should take that down as a quote. In this context. And I want to highlight, because what did we say at the beginning to everybody, Mel? We look at it in each particular context.
So when we go to the question of MAHMAD on the coins, we can't assume that we're talking about the historical figure from the 7th century,
Well, no, we can't. I'll even get more new. We can't assume we're talking about the Muhammad of the sin.
Yes.
Let's be clear. That we can't assume we're talking about that Muhammad. It could be some other Muhammad that had some kind of Christological, we don't know, but it's not that Muhammad. It's not that Muhammad in this context.
Yes.
It's just an interesting factoid about.
I like the fact that, if you notice, Al-Jalad, and I think we need to get used to using that. I would suggest whenever we're talking about the Muhammad of the sin, we use the Prophet Muhammad of the sin. As Al-Jalad just did there, the Prophet Muhammad of the 7th century.
This name.
Technically, you could say, okay, this does not make, like you said, there's no reason to read this very ancient inscription and then try to genetically tie it as if it somehow proves something about the 7th century prophet. What you can do potentially is etymologically see its significance in the language and dialect, and how a tradition about this idea of someone highly praised or significant could have evolved into someone who was a prophet. And you could see why they would apply that kind of thing to someone like him.
Look at what is it Derek, his name? Derek Lambert. Yeah. What has he just said? He said this term could have evolved into something associated with a person from the 7th century.
Exactly.
He's hypothesizing, and look, you and I both have our ideas on that. And I think Derek's on the money there.
Like the big million-dollar question is: this person running around in the 7th century, did he have this name from birth, which would be a bit of a coincidence, but it's not impossible, or did he
No.
apply it to himself, or did others apply it to him?
Yeah,
These are all
yeah.
possibilities.
That's right. That's right. But I like how Derek Lambert actually is almost channeling. He's channeling his inner Mel. if you'll
Well,
forgive me.
He's the bigger Mel here because he's taken the whole question of questioning origins to another level. And
Yeah,
I should point out that Derek kindly allowed me to share his video on the channel, and he's, from the little interaction I had with him, he seems a really nice guy, very intelligent guy.
Yeah. But it was just funny how what he was saying was, all I needed to do was transpose your face onto him. It's like
exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Correct.
This is the exciting part. Yes, this is the exciting part. So there's one more inscription. It's in script. It's in script 1B. Script 1B, and you're not gonna believe it. I presented this inscription at the Seminar for Arabian Studies in Abu Dhabi last December. The inscription is Alif Lam Ha Nun, which reads something like Ilahuna, our God, and then the next word is Muhammad. So our God, the highly praised,
our God, Muhammad.
So this
MAHMAD.
Sorry?
Our God, MAHMAD. There you go. A divine epithet.
And the thing is, that word still existed in the 6th century, so you could easily imagine that Christians could have used that term, even if we can't
100%.
actually. We may not be able to prove it now, but it's a possibility at the very least.
The fact is, he's presenting this inscription. He doesn't say in the video when he's dated it, but I'm assuming it's obviously pre-Islamic, right?
Yeah.
And it's our God, the highly praised. Our God. Even let's pretend it's Muhammad. Let's even use that pronunciation, right?
Yeah.
Our God, Muhammad, right? It's not the Muhammad of the sin. It's not the Prophet Muhammad of the sin he's talking about. He's talking about our God, right?
Yeah.
So for Christians to hear that and say, "Oh, that word sounds," if they're Arabic-speaking Christians, that word sounds nice. We'll use that to describe our God. It's not unreasonable, is it not?
Yeah. And here, let's just remind ourselves of the Shahada, right? There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad
And the praised
is the
one.
prophet of. Well, the thing is,
He's a messenger. And the praised one is a messenger of Allah. It doesn't even use the word prophet. It uses Rasul. Remember?
Yeah.
Because in Arabic, Nabi, they use Nabi or Nabi as a prophet.
Yeah. So therefore, like it makes sense there in a Shahada. It literally means witness. So if you're witnessing to God, it makes sense that this could have been a divine epithet now, even granting that it's referring to a historical person, but, it fits an overall thing about God, essentially.
Is truly a divine epithet in ancient East Arabia. Truly, our God, the highly praised one, our God. So what happens, which is really, really interesting, what happens is, yes, you have a divine epithet, Muhammad. It's a divine epithet. Is it still a divine epithet by the time you reach the 7th century, or has because divine epithets can also be used as personal names all the time. I mean, you have, for example, there's a divine epithet exalted in Arabic, which is Ali. But it's also a guy's name, Ali.
Yeah.
I mean, you could call it, so this is the point, is because it's a divine epithet, does not require it not to be a personal name. They can be the same. You can call the God Ali, exalted, and you can call a guy Ali, and not confuse the two. So is it the case in the 7th century that, MAHMAD or Muhammad, or however you want to pronounce it, could be used both as a divine epithet and a personal name? Or was it by that time just a personal name? That is something that needs to be fleshed out. It needs a lot of research. It needs a lot of work.
Moses there, he says, Muhammad or Mahmad, however you want to pronounce it.
You want to pronounce it, yeah.
This guy is an expert in Arabic. He's reading inscriptions in so many different scripts and dialects and so forth, and he has no problem saying that it could be pronounced as MAHMAD there, and he's not
That's right.
saying
And I think,
in just in another language or whatever, you know.
yeah, because there were no vowels in those scripts, at least in certain scripts. I mean, obviously in the South Arabian there were, but I like how he's saying that it's divine epithet or name, and whether it morphed into a name from a divine epithet morphed by the time
Yeah,
the 7th century, that's a possibility. I just think that his position and our position are really very close.
very close. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think you know. Whether his position and others, Jay Smith or others, what their positions are, we won't speak for them. But for you and
no,
I, Mel, we are saying
yeah,
in a particular context, it's this. In another context, it could be that.
I've had very good discussions with my colleague Haytham Sidqi, who is a real minimalist. He wants, and I think he's one of the most brilliant scholars working today. And he pushes. He says, look, I mean, any claim needs to. I mean, you need. It can't be claimed because it's exciting. It feeds into some revisionist theory, because we all get excited. Everyone gets excited about finding out something new. But do you want to find out something new, or you just want the kick for a little bit? You see what I mean? The cheap thrill. I don't want the cheap thrill. I really want to know the truth.
Same.
I want to know what happened, right? And so you've got to push it. And at that point, you realize that the evidence we have now, I mean, it doesn't tell you anything it doesn't at all imply that Muhammad had a different name or at birth, or that wasn't his name. It doesn't at all imply that, how do you call it, he didn't exist or anything of that sort. All it tells us is that this particular name has a very, very interesting history.
Right.
A very interesting history. Yes. And is there any relevance now that we know that history?
Right.
And that's the question. Yes. And you could say the same, because if you think about Muhammad's companion, Ali, right? His companion, also an important figure in history. His name is also a divine epithet. You know what I mean? I mean, then now, I mean, you don't want to be lured into the story that these are all gods or something of this. No, let's put that aside. But what we are seeing is that indeed that boundary between personal name and divine epithet is permeable.
You do know you just gave so much fodder for a bunch of internet mythicists of Muhammad. Like, they're going to take this and probably run with it. But
no.
Did you hear what he just said? That boundary between divine epithet and name is permeable.
yes.
Yeah, and how permeable would it have been in 7th century Arabia, 7th century Palestine, or 7th century Judea or Greater Syria? Permeable when you got a whole stack of different cultures, different languages interacting. Okay, so I like that boundary is permeable, and so we've got to look at, okay, again, what's the context, and looking at other evidence to see, all right, in that context with all these other pieces of evidence, what's the best explanation?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you've got to listen to everything I said first.
I know. I know. Trust me. I feel you.
Look the disclaimer. Handle it fair.
Everyone stop for a second. So
I
guess clearly. My thinking was like, okay, you either have a fossil and it's just a name and it has a history, or is there still not, have they, I want to use the word whitewashed, kind of like there's some people like Reza Aslan, when they talk about Jesus, they say he was a zealot. And you read the Gospels and you don't see a zealot, but you see enough things there to go, maybe there was something behind that. Bad analogy, but the analogy I'm trying to get at is there something still remaining in the name that isn't, this guy's a god, but may have this significant praise in some sense, or is it just a personal name, or could it be a little bit of both without a claim to divinity? Because by the time monotheism comes in, centuries prior to the 7th century, have they renegotiated? Have they had different ways? Or is Haytham Sidqi correct in simply just being like, it's a personal name, we have no reason to go beyond that, and trying to suggest more without evidence that actually says that, not almost 1,000 years earlier, but
Absolutely. So evidence. So 1,000 years earlier from Oman is not evidence. No. That's very important to remember. What we are talking about simply is the history of this name, this title. One can make an argument that the situation is more complicated. One can, and it's not going to go in the route of mythicism. No. It's not about that, but rather that the situation is more complicated. Maybe it's more than just a name. It doesn't have to do with the name Qutham or any of that business, but it has to do with a few other irregularities that are attached to this name that have not yet been accounted for.
Yeah, I think maybe if we can just point out, maybe we can point out here that Mel, neither you and I are, misrepresenting hopefully what Professor Al-Jalad has said. We have read the disclaimer. We are not locking him in. We are saying what he's saying.
Yeah.
I think that's that. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. He's saying that there's an interesting history to the name Muhammad. There's something unusual about it.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean if someone is going around called Muhammad that he's claiming to be a god. That's one thing he's not saying. But it offers possibilities, and that's all he's going to say.
And we're not saying that he's saying that Muhammad didn't exist, or that but what we're saying is that the Prophet Muhammad of the Sin, when you look at all the evidence, the best explanation is that he didn't exist. Now, I'm happy to say that, but again, this is just one piece of when you're looking at a court case, we're taking a many pronged approach. So this is just one of them.
And one of these irregularities is, out of all of these early names, the name of the prophet has a double pronunciation. So you have the name Muhammad, with the U vowel there, and then you have, through transcriptions from various sources, not just one, multiple lines of transcription that is writing this name in scripts where we can see the vowels, the pronunciation MAHMAD. So MAHMAD. So you have Muhammad and MAHMAD.
Yeah.
So he's saying, like, okay, there's something about this. It's more than just a name, and there's some irregularities around this that doesn't quite make sense. And this is where the MAHMAD side of things comes into it.
And he says they haven't been accounted for, and this is where Jai and DOC and David Wood and all those other people have to just calm the farm a bit, as we say in Australia, and realize that no, you can't make these sweeping statements. Like I like what he said about his colleague Haitham Sitki. He's a minimalist. He's not interested in the cheap thrill. I'm not interested in the cheap thrill either. I want to say, okay, what does the evidence tell us? What can we say? And we'll say what we can say, and we shouldn't go any further than that. But Al-Jalad said something very clear, very specific, and something that you and I have been saying. You look at the scripts that have the vowels. When you look at the scripts, it's been transliterated. Like you said, we can't translate. Well, Al-Jalad, who's, I'm sorry, with all due respect, Jai and DIC, I think I'll take Professor Al-Jalad's word over yours. When we're talking about ancient, Semitic languages, he says you can, and he says when you look at it in scripts that do have the vowels, we see something very interesting. We see more than one pronunciation.
Yes, that's the thing. So there's obviously more to it than meets the eye. Okay, let's hear what he has to say on it.
Yeah.
And that pronunciation Mahmad, it goes on for a while, because it gives rise ultimately to the Turkish Mehmet.
It's gone on for centuries.
It's not a blip. It's not somebody mishearing something. I don't think you can argue that. It's not a scribal error.
Yeah.
I don't think you can argue that it's a scribal error or it's just some kind of like Al-Jalad said, it gives rise to the Turkish Mehmed.
Yeah.
And it persists. So that is huge. I agree.
Which is very interesting, which is the Turkish name for Muhammad. How did it reach the Turks? I mean, I don't know. I don't know anything about this. The point that I'm trying to make simply is that that's another glitch.
Everywhere.
It's like a glitch is a great word there, because it's like glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah, but also look, and they're everywhere. What does he say?
Yeah.
You see,
This is
I
not
think
a
that's a
mistake.
point. This is not a mistake. This is not, it's a glitch, but it's not someone's isolated error. It persists, and I think we have to emphasize that. And thank you, Professor Al Jalad, for doing a lot of the heavy lifting here, because they persist. Not only are they everywhere, but as we'll see, as you'll probably say, they persist over time.
Yeah.
So through space and through time, the more than one pronunciation, which is what we're saying.
So there's two things really. He's actually saying that it's present in a broad geographical context.
Yes, space, area,
and over a broad period of time. So this is
times.
very embedded.
Yes, it is
embedded in time and space. So
that's
you can't just say, "Oh, we just
Someone made a mistake. No.
Okay, and that requires explanation, and
100%.
And Joy's explanation of the grammar will not get us there.
No, that's what I keep coming back to. Remember how many times did I say that? You can wax lyrical all you want about Arabic grammar and patterns. It doesn't explain this, right? And this is one piece of evidence that we can show that whoever this MAHMAD was in the 7th century context of coins and inscriptions, etc., and sources, he was not the Prophet Muhammad of the sin.
Regularity. Okay, hold on. Why are there two pronunciations? And they're everywhere. It's very interesting. So we have MAHMAD and Muhammad. Both of those name pronunciations exist early
on. Both of them persist early on. Yep. You keep going. Yep. The flyleaf from the Gospel of Mark that talks about the Tayyaye de Mahmad, but it's MWHM. I researched this. It's in Syriac. That's the thing.
In fact, the earliest document we have that mentions outside documents that mentions the prophet of the how does it describe him? Well, it doesn't describe him. It's a document, very famous document. It's a Syriac document in the flyleaf of the Bible, I think it is, or the margins of the Bible, fragments called the Fragment of the Arab Conquests. You've heard of it probably.
Yes.
It's a fragment that describes the what most scholars think to be ultimately the events that lead to the Battle of Yarmouk during the reign of Umar. And the observer of this event, Syriac writing Levantine person observing this, doesn't know what a Muslim is or any of this business.
Right.
He describes the people coming in as Tayyaye de Muhammad. So the Tayyaye, you call them the Arabs, basically. It's a term they use to describe all the Arabs. Fine. Mm-hmm. Very complicated.
Yeah, Tayyaye.
Podcast.
All the Muslims.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he call them Muslims? We can have all of our own explanations of what Tayyaye means. Okay. Some people will say it talks about the people from Tajikistan or from Iraq. Shoemaker seems to want to translate it as nomads, quote unquote. I won't get into that argument. But why aren't they called Muslims?
Yeah. And like some of the people defending the other side, let's say the Sen, you'd imagine that Islam was born fully formed at this stage. So all
it had to be
there.
Had to have been. They should have been called Muslims. Sorry, pause for a second. They should have been called Muslims unless, of course, Islam is the result of an evolutionary process.
Which I would agree with.
Yes.
Now, the word Muslim and Islam, even if you found examples of it in the 7th century, didn't yet have the meaning that we associated with it. They began over a period of decades.
Yeah. Well, as we know, the earliest reference to Muslim is John of Nicaea.
Yeah. That was
690.
690.
Yeah, and the earliest manuscript we have is 1600. So let's even agree. Something I ask on my is here's a question: if Muhammad was the most important person in all of Islam after Allah, is it that no one mentions him, or he's not mentioned everywhere for 60 years?
Yeah.
And if Islam is the Sunnah of the Prophet, if Islam is the religion of Muhammad, why is it not mentioned?
Yeah.
You know, from the beginning. Anyway, we'll let Al-Jalad finish. We're interrupting him.
The of and Muhammad. And we know it's pronounced Muhammad because he writes in Syriac MW. Mu. Okay? So not Mahmad, Muhammad. So these are the Tayyayad Muhammad. Okay, very nice. But then very shortly later, you have in Greek Mamed, okay, and Mamad. And you also have forms in Syriac with a T at the end too. So you have multiple pronunciations of this name from the very beginning.
I think that's huge.
I think it is, and I think if you to channel my inner Mel, I thought Jai and DOC said that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
You know, if you recall, they said through their very detailed and enlightening, credit where credit's due. I'm sure their grammatical explanation was all accurate, but it wasn't really relevant. And Al-Jalad has told us that no, you can have different pronunciation. This name did have, or this word did have different pronunciations, irrespective of what they think about modern Arabic grammar.
Yeah. So the point he's saying there is what usually happens with a name is a sort of a sticky thing.
Yes. It's not normal for a personal name. He's got it up there. It's not normal for a personal name.
Like it tends to, even if you transcribe it into other language, you try and keep it as close to the original as possible. But what they're finding is it's being pronounced in a lot of variable ways, which suggests there's more than personal name. Something else is going on. Is what he's suggesting.
I'll give you another example that illustrates the same thing. Okay, what did the Romans call their emperor?
Caesar.
Caesar. What? No, Caesar. Right. Caesar. Right. What did the Russians call their emperor? The Tsar.
Yeah,
that's Caesar. That's what did the Germans call their emperor? The Kaiser.
Yeah.
See, they all come from Caesar.
Yeah.
Right, and they're all transliterations or alterations of the same root word. All right, different pronunciations. Right.
Yeah.
You see, but so why can't the same thing have happened with this title, MHMD?
Yeah, actually, just on the Caesar one. The original pronunciation was with a K sound.
Yes, because the same title, same consonants, okay, have different pronunciations. But we don't see changes. Like, for example, we don't see the word Julius, or the word Nero, for example. We don't see that really change very much. That's a personal name, and I think that illustrates a point that he's making and that you're making. That names don't tend to change, but epithets and titles could.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not normal for a personal name. Because it looks like it's being translated or adapted, because Mahmad is if you were just to think about it linguistically, is a nice Aramaic form. Doesn't have to be Aramaic, but it's certainly not an Arabic form, right? Whereas Muhammad is. So it looks like something more than that. You can try to make a story out of that. And connect it with the other things we've talked about, but it's still very circumstantial. I think ultimately there is something special about the name, obviously, but I don't know if we have enough evidence yet to figure it out. But it could possibly. Yeah.
I'm looking at that wondering, is this just taking on some evolution in that context with Christianity and Judaism now brought in, giving them a new way to negotiate the name and its significance under the Islamic origins. You know what I mean? But this is all an interesting thing that you're bringing up. I mean, either way you slice it, though, I think the conclusion can be that the name has roots in a divinity, and that goes back. Correct?
I would say that the name is used as a divine title.
Divine title.
Yeah, divine title. It doesn't, not exclusively, but it is used as a divine title. So it's like Adi used as a divine title. Yeah. So it's an epithet. Or the name is used as a divine epithet. It doesn't mean it was exclusively used as one, but
Of course.
it is very clear that it was used as a divine epithet, and that its use as a divine epithet predates the monotheistic period, because the inscription everyone points at that does this, it's the epithet of the god of the Jews. These Dhofari inscriptions show that the divine epithet was used many, many centuries before that, deep in the pagan period. So it is in the Dhofari inscriptions likely a divine epithet applied to the sun god, Shams. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're tremendous. Yeah. So we are at the beginning now. In fact, the final letter shapes, the final values for the letter shapes for Thamuric D were really only achieved a couple of years ago. So, but those inscriptions mainly contain personal names. So in any case, so this writing traditions of West Arabia were deciphered by the early 21st century, and we had access to 1,500 years of lost history, lost mythology, lost tribes, lost languages. It's just tremendous. It's wonderful. And of course, that's what I spend my life doing. I'm busy with all of this material. But there was a group of inscriptions that eluded decipherment. They come from Oman, mainly Oman. So Oman, of course, in southern Arabia. Most of Arabia is desert. But in southwestern Arabia and in this part of East Arabia, western Oman, these areas receive monsoon precipitation. And you get agriculture, it's beautiful greenery. It's really something else. This area, these inscriptions come from around Oman, from area called Dhofar, and the desert surrounding this area. This area receives monsoon precipitation, so it's very green. These inscriptions were first recorded in the early 20th century by hand copies, and the script was radically different than all the others that we had seen. In the sense that it wasn't a game of Wheel of Fortune. It wasn't. There was too much missing. You understand what I mean? Too much missing.
Yeah.
And so, but they became sort of curiosities. That's it, curiosities. And for a century, all we had were some very poor hand copies, or almost a century, hand copies and photographs. Nothing that could really permit decipherments. Then, towards the end of the 20th century, in the 80s, a private citizen reported to the Department of the Ministry of Antiquities, Tourism, and Heritage, I don't know what it was called exactly at the time, that he had seen in the caves. So in Dhofar, this area is mountainous, okay? It's beautiful. When we will see some photographs, mountainous. In these mountain caves, there are painted writings. And this private citizen thought they looked like the Yemenite writings, the ancient South Arabian writings. So he reported these.
Hi, my name is Liam Neeson. You know, it's hard to explain what it's like.
A local researcher called Ali Mahash al-Shahri went to investigate, and he found hundreds and hundreds of inscriptions in caves. Painted ones. And this is very different than the ones from around Arabia, because all the way around, those are carved mostly into stone. These are painted. Okay? And so he got into contact with someone who's my intellectual sibling. She's dead. She died a long time ago, but he got in touch with her. Her name is Geraldine King. Geraldine King was a student of Michael McDonald, like me. And so, although I never met her, he got in touch with her, and she came down to Oman, and together they conducted a survey in the hills of Dhofar, the mountains of Dhofar, and they recorded hundreds of painted inscriptions. And they produced a report, a very long report, which became publicly available. It's online, where they traced all the inscriptions. They traced them. They made concordances. They described, in the end, they said, look, they did not produce a decipherment. They threw their hands in the air. They said, this is sort of impossible to understand. But elements here. Here's all the legwork. It's just we don't have, what was missing was the key. Okay, there was no key. And because what it takes to decipher something, you need very particular conditions, traditionally speaking, to decipher an inscription. I don't know if advances in computers or whatever changes that. I'm very computer illiterate. But you need special conditions. You need a bilingual text, right? So that you have the undeciphered language and script, but then you know what it says. And here's the because you have the bilingual and something you know. So this is the Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, exactly. And for those who don't know what that is, like you said, there's known languages that we know, like Wheel of Fortune. So when you get to the unknown, you can see, hey, there's a translation of that, and then it's easy to decipher.
Here he summarizes what he said there, but this is a good summary.
Yeah. So now one of the things that he had said in the other video was that MAHMAD exists, but in the form of Aramaic, or at least it matches up with the Aramaic. So there was a question in my mind: was, well, so is MAHMAD Arabic or is it Aramaic? You know, which is it? So I asked him directly. Dr. Ahmed mentions that MAHMAD was pronounced both as Muhammad and Mahmad. When pronounced as Mahmad, was it treated as an Arabic word? How was its meaning treated? Praised one or the desired one? Thank you. So that's the question. Now, I've no idea if they know of my channel or anything. I doubt they do. I don't think they do. But thankfully they addressed the question anyway.
Islamic Origins has been patient with this. The pronunciation.
That's a very interesting question.
And I think we also maybe you can do. We get two questions in one here, because someone else was asking about. I think Christian Robin worked on an inscription where Muhammad, or Mim Ha Mim Dal, is used as a name for God or a god.
So what we can say, I mean, to go quickly, and I'm happy to stay a little bit longer since we only have officially 5 minutes left, but I'm happy to stay a little bit longer.
I have to shut down the stream.
Okay.
Yeah, right on time.
All right. So then I'm gonna rush this. Then we're gonna have to. You're just gonna have to trust me, bros. It's beyond, I think, doubt that this is a divine epithet. Muhammad is divine epithet. What makes it very interesting is in the early Islamic period, but it's also a personal name. They can be both, a divine epithet and a personal name. That's totally fine. There are many other divine epithet, personal name doublets. But what's fascinating, I think, what's interesting is in the early Islamic period, there are 2 recorded pronunciations of Muhammad. And you can't see this in the Arabic script. In the Arabic script, you have only Mahamada. But in transcription, you have Mahmad and you have Muhammad. These 2 exist very, very early together.
Do we know this from Greek or from
Greek transcription, Coptic, from even just the way the word is loaned into other languages. So, for example, somehow it makes it into Turkish even as Mehmet. Mehmet has to go back to something like Mahmad.
Do you notice there he said Mehmet has to go back to
yes.
Mahmad. He's not saying it's possible even that it can come back from Muhammad.
And that's something that Robert Kerr told us as well. You can't get Mehmed from Muhammad.
Well,
so the fact that these 2 heavyweights are saying the same thing, I think, puts that to bed, really.
Yeah.
You see, this is really, really interesting. So it lasts quite a long time. Mahmad is, the question is it in Arabic now? I mean, the form maf'al is Arabic.
Good. Can you pause that? See, here he is. And this I guess, is something we could unpack, because that refutes, or that talks about, Jai and DOC's presentation. Here he's talking about, it's not a participle. Right, It's a maf'al form. I mean, I'm not an Arabic grammarian, so I'll let the grammarians sort that out. But it doesn't change the fact that he's just saying it's in that form, and it's Mahmed or Mahmed and Muhammad. There's 2 pronunciations, and they persist.
But Arabic does non-concatenative morphology. The core meaning is in the root consonants, and the additional meaning is in the vowel pattern throughout the word. Arabic roots are typically 3 letters, like k, t, b, related to writing. But we apply a specific vowel pattern to change the meaning of the word, like this pattern, which is the simple past, he wrote. Or this pattern, which is the passive past, it was written. Or this pattern, which is the agent noun, a writer or an author. or this pattern, a place noun, a place of writing, or a library. And we can apply these patterns to other roots, like darasa, related to studying. So he studied, it was studied, one who studies, or a learner, a place of study, or a school. So
yeah. Okay, so what he's saying is there's a very niche bit of grammar here.
Yeah.
Where it fits in. Right, it doesn't fit into the, as he will describe later, the textbook Arabic that Joy and others are familiar with.
Yes.
This is very niche, and it's only people with a high level of knowledge of linguistics and whatever else, philology, are aware.
That's right.
That's and he's going to explain it here, and I think this is what I might do after this is actually go into the linguist's comment on this as well.
Yeah.
But let's hear what he has to say.
I mean, it's a Semitic form, so it possibly, but it's not a participle in Arabic. It's not, maf'al is not, that does not mean the one who gives praise or is praised. It's sort of an instrumental or locative noun.
Wow. I don't even, I'm not very familiar with that. An instrumental locative noun.
Well, it's to me, it
indicates location.
It's not an adjective. It describes a thing. It identifies a thing, and it identifies their location. I don't know what instrumental means, but again, it's not a participle. It's actually, it's an epithet. It's a description. It's a predicate. A noun can be a predicate. But I like that. I might write that down. Instrumental locative noun. Let me see if we can both research what that means.
Yeah. There are words in Arabic that are have ma and are to do with location. I think I can think of.
Yeah, in Hebrew it works like that too. Makom is like the place.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
It's the same pattern as malak or malak, meaning angel. Malak, which comes from the root la'aka.
Yeah. So he's basically saying it fits as a pattern that exists in Arabic.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They
were didn't occur to them that it could be this, that this possibility existed.
Means to send. Malak means sent. So that's the maf'al pattern. Mahmad would be the same pattern, which would mean praised.
So we have the term now for this pattern. It's called the maf'al pattern. So Joy was talking about patterns in Arabic and saying that you can't pronounce it MAHMAD because it doesn't follow any Arabic pattern. Well, the maf'al pattern is the one that you need to be aware of.
That's right. And I think what I might do is I might research a bit more on that and maybe even reach out to Professor Al-Jalad or somebody and just to confirm what he's saying and confirm the research. Okay, this is what I found. Is that true? And then maybe we can do a follow-up just on that thing, because I think it's important that it's not to disparage Jai and DOC. It's that one shouldn't present themselves as an expert unless they've looked at everything to the best of their ability.
Yeah. And we just want to know what the facts are about the grammar. We've no dog in this race, really.
No.
It's whatever the facts are. We don't mind whatever way it falls.
Yes.
In that function, that's not an Arabic. That's not what we might think of as textbook Arabic. The Muhammad one is.
It's not textbook Arabic.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not textbook Arabic. There you go.
Yeah. No, some people will hear that and say, "Oh, he's saying it's not Arabic," but he's not saying. He's very nuanced. He's saying it's not textbook Arabic. It's very niche.
That's right. But also, let's go back to what I said before. And again, sorry, listeners, for being a broken record. It's not textbook Arabic. You know why I think it's not textbook Arabic? Because there was no textbook in the 7th century.
Yeah.
You see?
There's a lot of variance and
there was a lot of variance. It wasn't settled. It wasn't. It was in flux. The language was being developed. So you can't appeal to a 9th century textbook for 7th century words. I'm sorry. Different context.
Yeah. Okay. But even there, Like there is a form, the mafal form that existed. It's just that people are not aware of that because it's such an obscure part of the
Well,
grammar.
he doesn't say where he just says that's the form. He doesn't say where it first originated. He didn't go into
Yeah,
that. I'd
yeah,
like
yeah,
to mine that a bit, and I might actually see if I
yeah,
can contact him or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'd like to mine exactly. Okay, when did it start? So
yeah,
not, but again, it's
yeah.
not a
I
rabbit
think that
trail for us.
yeah,
But I was just going to say because we don't have a
yeah,
dog in that hunt, but it's still
yeah,
it
yeah,
would be. I'm interested to know.
yeah. Well, the thing is that word malak uh, uh, goes way back. So if that was a form in Arabic and it goes way back, say, and it's the same as with Hebrew, malak,
Yeah.
angel,
Yes,
that goes
messenger.
way back. So you're talking about a piece of grammar that's going way back before it was
Yes. Yes,
twinkle in the eye of the Arab or grammar writer.
that's right, and either way, it works for us because if the grammar wasn't put together in a textbook, then okay, our argument stands. Even if it was, it's not. The pattern that they are alleging it is not. It's a different
Yeah,
pattern that they haven't addressed. So either
yeah,
way, our argument stands.
yeah. But the other thing is we need to distinguish between there is a grammar that exists in the oral society, even if it's not written down technically.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you could
but
you could go you could go to somewhere in Africa where they've never written down the language, but the way the language works and
that's
what the
right.
sounds mean, that's a grammar.
That
Even if
that's
it's
right.
not
But
defined.
yeah, but that's true, Mel. But you can the reason why your analogy works is because did you see what did you say? You can go, right? Are we talking
Yeah,
past present? We're talking present tense, right?
yeah, yeah,
Now we can't go to 10th century Africa to see how their
yeah,
grammar worked. We
yeah,
don't have that, and so again, I just want to, we got to look at
yeah,
context, and we and so I like the fact that he says it's not textbook Arabic, it's niche, and we it fits with what we're saying anyway. I won't we flogged that horse a bit already.
yeah.
And that's the ground for theory. Like, why are there two different and maybe even competing pronunciations of this name? That's fascinating.
Competing pronunciations.
And one does seem to have, are people translating Muhammad Arabic into other languages for some reason in the early period? Lots to say about that. We have only 3 minutes, so we'll just leave it there.
I think somewhere else he suggests that the meaning of it was drawn in from elsewhere. Okay. So well, I basically asked on my channel, was his answer clear enough? To me, it was, what do you think? I had one Arabic speaker respond to me that it proved their view that MAHMAD wasn't an Arabic pronunciation, but I thought that was precisely what he did say. But so anyway, the linguist said Dr. Al-Jalad omits crucial details regarding the root Hamad and the it's hard to read that one. I think it's MAHMAD pattern, maybe it is.
Yeah.
This root does not signify praise, okay, in either ancient North Arabian, Aramaic, nor Hebrew. Do you get that?
Yep.
So its meaning, so the root does not signify praise in ancient North Arabian,
Yeah.
Aramaic, or Hebrew. Its
Yeah.
meaning of praise is present in ancient South Arabian,
Yeah.
which is not Arabic. It's a sister
Sabay.
language.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Arabic.
that fits with, because where are the inscriptions that they've been finding that they found?
It's
They were Oman,
in Oman. Yeah.
Oman and Yemen and
Yeah.
Najran, South Arabian.
So what he's saying here, and this is hopefully this is something that Al-Jalad will talk about at a later stage in more detail. But what the linguist is saying is that the meaning praise, which is taken for what MAHMAD or Muhammad means, has been adopted from the South Arabian language. Now, it's when we see South Arabian, we might think, oh, that's Arabic. It's not. It's another
No.
language in
No,
Saudi
it's
Arabia.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
different alphabet. Let's read what he says the next. The MAC1, C2, AC3 pattern.
It denotes a locative or locative.
Locative,
When
yeah.
applied to a stative verb, it effectively anchors that verb to a conceptual location.
Location,
For instance,
context, I guess. Yes. So it
Yeah.
anchors that verb to a context. Okay, keep going.
yeah. For instance, the stative root jasira, I think it is,
Yeah.
signifying
Yasar,
to be straight,
yeah.
yields
Nice.
majasir,
Yeah.
which denotes equity. This
Equity,
term
yeah.
signifies a conceptual location within a moral framework.
Okay.
When the locative pattern is applied to the stative root hamad, meaning praise, the resulting form is MAHMAD. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
This form carries a locative sense, but rather than denoting the physical location of the act, this nominalization signifies the location where praise is bestowed, leading to interpretations such as prized object or precious treasure, mirroring the Hebrew meaning.
Okay, and just
Therefore,
pause there. So pause there, and that fits with the Ugaritic as well. Remember, it was
Yes,
talking about
yeah.
the desired coveted gold. Yep.
Yes. Therefore, the Arabic nomen loci, I think that's MAHMAD,
MAHMAD, yeah.
differs in meaning and function from the epithet Muhammad, the highly praised one.
Ah,
Okay,
okay. So yeah.
So actually, I would suggest, based on what the linguist has said, that the alternative MAHMAD to Muhammad has got certain flavors to it that enriches the discussion.
Well, what I'm getting is they're different forms. They have different meanings. They have the same root, but they have different meanings. And Muhammad is different to Mahmad, according to the linguist. So and this is actually, this is something we need to explore further, and we'll probably need to do another video on this, because if Muhammad is different to Mahmad, then that changes a lot of things, because where he's written, the Tayyayedu Muhammad versus Mamet, they could be talking about two different people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm just saying that they, because the linguist is saying that they're different. They're not the same verb form. They're not the same derivation, and they don't have the same meaning. So what is he saying that? So can you maybe figure out what is he saying that Mahmad means?
So
a prized object.
He's saying that it signifies the location where praise is bestowed. And he says, just be careful, because he said leading to interpretation. So that can lead to interpretations such as prized object or precious treasure. We need to be careful. He's not saying it means prized object or precious treasure. We need to be careful. That's a bridge that we're not crossing. It's a bit like the mistake of saying Mahmad means Messiah. So
but they're different verbs.
So it's very similar in the sense that Muhammad means the highly praised one, and Mahmad means praise bestowed upon a location.
And that fits with the Hebrew meaning in Song of Songs, as well as lovely, altogether lovely, right? And or in Lamentations, that your precious objects that will be destroyed. And I guess it again fits with the hypothesis that the word Mahmad, which is earlier because it's South Arabian, okay, because that language is earlier than Arabic. Then we get Muhammad, which is in time is from North Arabian, right? There's nothing to say that you couldn't have an evolution. The Arabs have taken that word and applied it to whatever they wanted to apply it to. That's always also possible.
Yeah, I would be careful in making judgments about which is older, because I think we're on shaky ground there. That these are sister languages, and they have their own histories going way back into the past. So I would say we can't make a definitive statement on that part.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I mean, I'm very happy to be corrected, and I'll do my research. But I think my understanding is that the South Arabian languages are older. the Sabaic and all that, which is why you get the inscriptions in those, where Al-Jalad has found them. But I'm very happy to be corrected on that, because
I think Al-Jalad basically says that they got their scripts from the north.
The Arabs did,
yeah. So I wouldn't like, because I remember making this mistake before about Aramaic versus Arabic, and I was under the impression that Aramaic was older than Arabic, and it isn't as straightforward as that. There's a common ancestor, but I would.
Yeah, I think my understanding is that there's a difference. The scripts like Talmudic and Safavidic and the North Arabian scripts are different to the South Arabian scripts.
Yes,
I mean, we can research as to which one's older. I mean, I think it just boils down to what inscriptional evidence we have, really. But they're different. I think we're as you say, what we probably should emphasize is that they're different languages. They're not sort of the same. And the meanings could be different too.
Yeah. But I don't think there's a huge amount of difference in meaning there. But it does seem to be that they're not picking up the word praise from a similar Semitic source like Hebrew and Aramaic. In those Semitic languages, they tend to see it as desired. But where they're picking up the distinct meaning of praise, and whether it be highly praised or the location of praise, they seem to be picking it up from the South Arabian language.
Yeah, but it doesn't explain. But the linguist explanation doesn't explain why Sebeos, for example, talks about the Arab prophet as MAHMAD.
Yeah.
So it doesn't explain that.
No.
His explanation could explain why the flyleaf talks about the Tayyaya de Muhammad, the praised one. But I mean, to say that the Arab leader, the desired gold leading these Arabs, no, that doesn't make sense. So, but like what Al-Jalad said, we've got these two pronunciations. They're different. They're written differently. What we can see is their roots are different. Like in terms of grammatically, and I don't think or maybe we can just say that we can't explain why they exist. They coexist.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you sometimes get variants of, say, if we take it as a name for just for simplicity, sometimes you get variants on a name and they can coexist quite happily, like Michael and Mickey. Like you can get those, and they can. But it's this is more. This is about titles and deeper meanings. That's where.
But that's not a valid analogy, my friend, because Michael and Mickey are two different words. They got different consonants. They got different, So Michael with an I and Michael with an E, Mekiel. Okay, you could that could be. What we're See, so and I agree with Al-Jalad. Personal names don't tend to have that much variation as do epithets and titles, and so it doesn't explain why there's. See, it doesn't explain why there are these two competing pronunciations and why they persist, and it doesn't explain. So we're entitled to read the coins, for example, as MAHMAD. There's nothing tying us to read it as Muhammad.
Yeah. Can I throw out a very loose hypothesis here? Because I like to try at least imagine the possibilities, even if I don't know the answer. But I would think if we were to go back to the 7th century, and you've got an Arabic word which can be pronounced either as Muhammad or Mahmad, right? And it's been presented to a population that's largely familiar with Aramaic and Hebrew and even Greek, but let's say Aramaic. The word that they likely latch onto would be more likely Mahmad than Muhammad, because
100%. The Song of Songs.
They can relate to it. They can turn to the Song of Songs, but even the fact that the word makes some sense to them in Hebrew and some sense in Aramaic without needing to know Arabic. So that could be just the simple way of explaining why both persisted. Yeah, so that's as far as it can go. I don't think just
I think I just want to point out that if his name, if Muhammad was so important, and he was like the exemplar for all mankind, it's less likely, in my opinion, they would have got his name wrong. They would have spelt his name wrong. If the Muhammad of the sin, if we're talking about the Muhammad of the sin, he's so, because the Muhammad of the sin, that Muhammad has very specific characteristics. Okay, let's assume the sin is right. Let's assume Isnad works, right? If the Muhammad of the sin, that the sin tells us all these different details about Muhammad, right? And let's assume that Isnad works and that this has been faithfully transmitted accurately. They remember all of this stuff, and yet they don't spell his name right. That sort of, it does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that why wouldn't they? If he was Muhammad, if the man we're talking about was Muhammad, why didn't they get his name right? Because they're saying that they gave so much detail about him, right? Down to the moles he had on him, right? And yet they get his name wrong. I just find that's not. It's like, why didn't they write the stuff down when there was lots of people who could read or write, and he was so important? Special pleading. It seems like it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't seem like it doesn't make sense. Back again? Yes.
Yeah.
I just said that it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I hope I can remember now what it was.
Anyway, you go.
Yeah. So the point I was trying to make is that while we know historically now that there were two pronunciations that were present and very prevalent, somehow we're expected to believe that the Sirah and all the Hadiths, they make no reference to the fact that there were these two pronunciations. They stick with the standard Islamic narrative of Muhammad. They've whitewashed this MAHMAD bit out, which would make me suspicious that those narratives come from a later period as well.
No, I said we know that they come from a later period. The sin admits they come from a later period.
Yeah.
We know that.
Yeah.
So it all fits. It fits, So anyway,
I think in conclusion, I think Dr. Al-Jalad has basically given us solid pieces of confirmation that we're on the right track. That MAHMAD was one of the pronunciations. I'm glad he clarified that. And the title and name are possibilities when we look at the word. It's not just the name or not just the title. We don't need to pigeonhole each other on this. And it opens up our discussions quite a bit, in terms of assessing all the evidence. So we don't need to necessarily assume too tightly what's going on. And I suppose the third thing I would say is that we don't what's the word for it? Oversell the evidence. That would be the third thing I would draw from it.
And what it tells us, what I think he supports, or he helps us support, is that this word MHMD had different pronunciations in different places and had different meanings and different uses in different contexts. And what its and we can't assume that the context that it was used or its meaning and use in the 9th century Sirah and Hadith literature is the same as the 7th century. Okay, and so I think it's reasonable then to look at all the other pieces of evidence, the pieces of circumstantial evidence. When you weigh those up, does it support the sin or doesn't it support the sin? And I think we both agree it doesn't support the sin. Everything we've seen tonight, talked about in this podcast, doesn't support the sin.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I meant to say earlier that I thought might be an interesting area of further explanation, which is the MHMT variant.
Yes.
And that might also have an explanation down south, and I think that would be cool to discover. That maybe there's a South Arabian language where Aramaic formed the word in that way, and maybe that has got some other meaning that we're not aware of, because that persisted as well. So
beautiful.
Con, hope I didn't take up too much of your time. Thank you so much.
No, it was a pleasure. A pleasure, and Yeah, and you if you don't mind, the YouTube channel is called "Is Islam a Sinking Ship?" The 5 torpedoes, and there's in due course a book coming out called "Islam on Trial," where we put all this stuff up.
Brilliant.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, Mel. Thanks, Mel.
All the
You have a good
best.
day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Cheers.